I'm actually so freaking tilted. It is so tilting, man. Well, everyone needs to refresh. Tell the chat to refresh. I am so annoyed by this shit, man. Why is it back, dude? Why does it keep doing this to me? Nate River, thank you for the 6 months. H Dragon Kaiser, thank you for the 5. Appreciate the support, everybody. Thank you, thank you. Alright, well. And it goes onto the wrong scene, of course. Oh my god, I'm so tilted. Pop. Vodafone, it has nothing to do with my internet. That's the frustrating thing. The frustrating thing with it is that it has nothing to do with my internet because everything is fine. Like I can keep reading chat. That's how I notice that it happens, is because I keep reading chat. Like you guys, the F's in chat and whatever, I see that, right? Everything keeps running. The music keeps running. The Twitch chat keeps running. It's an OBS issue, but I have not found a solution for it. I have no idea why it happens. I googled it. It doesn't seem like it's something that happens with many other people, and I don't know, dude. I don't know. PC issue? Well, what the hell is my PC doing? Every time after 25 minutes, it shuts down OBS for like a split second, because OBS doesn't even crash. OBS is still open. Maybe reinstall OBS. I did that already. I have no idea why this happens. I genuinely have no idea. Anyways. Kalalza, thank you for the 2 months. Appreciate that. Thank you. Do you run it as administrator? I do. Yeah, I changed that at some point. I changed it to executing OBS as administrator, and that seemed to fix it for a while. And it's not happened for like months. And now it's back since like 2 weeks. I don't know. Alpha, thank you for the 4 months. Welcome back. Appreciate that. All right, let's get this card. What is this? Level 4. Come on, level 4 monster can't be that hard. Let's just narrow it down a little bit by guessing cards, even if it can't be that. Let's guess a wolf. It is light. It's a level 4 light monster between 2009 and 2014. Barrier statue? Barrier statue of the heavens. Nope, that's not it. It's too old. It's too old. A Bujin? It could be a Bujingi with some weird stats. What do we know? Okay. Over 300 defense, less than... Okay, Bujingi. It could be a Bujingi. Let me see. No. Nope. I can't see a Bujingi with the thingy. What? Oh, it could be Wad Cobra. Oh! It's probably a Wad then. What do we have? What? No, maybe it's a Hunter, yeah. Hunter? What do we have? More than 1,000 attack, more than 500 defense. Hunter, okay. That's the one. Not bad. I mean, five attempts is above average for us, but it's a pretty tough card. It's a pretty tough card, but I've seen this card. Hunter, it's like, it's one of those cards that if you played actively back in the day, you would know these cards. Because some people did mess around with Hunters as like a level 4 engines, like level 4 Xyz kind of strategies. It wasn't a top tier deck, but people would mess around with it. You know, it's a boomer kind of thing. You wouldn't get it if you're not a Yugi boomer. You would probably have never seen this card. but I've seen this card before. Benny Me, thank you for the 17 months. Appreciate the support, everybody. Thank you so much. Okay. Now that we have the warm up out of the way, and also the stream reset out of the way, we can hop into today's stuff. Like I said, there isn't really anything crazy going on in Yu-Gi-Oh right now, neither in the TCG or in Master Duel. Like, there's nothing super crazy to talk about. But I thought it would be a good day to just do a little bit of, you know, here and there, a little bit of everything. And then if we have some time left after, we can even hop into some Master Duel. I don't know exactly how long everything that I have planned for today is going to take. But if we have some more time left, we can just fill it with Master Duel towards the end. So let me just tell you real quick what we're going to do today for everyone that tuned in the last couple minutes. We're going to start by looking at the new Sky Striker support that is going to change our lives forever. First, just a little bit. I actually have not looked at the cards yet. But we're going to see if they're any good. Because I feel like there's been a decent bit of hype around them on like Twitter and everything. Mainly it's just because of the freaking copy pasta. As you can clearly tell in chat, there is definitely something like this going on. After that, I want to take a quick look. And by quick look, I mean, I don't actually know how long it's going to be yet, but I want to take a quick look at Memento and Vaalmonica, because we did have an entire stream dedicated to Centurion, because Centurion seems to be the most relevant archetype out of Valiant Smashers. But since the set just dropped, and a lot of people commented under the YouTube video that like they would want my opinion on Memento and Vaalmonica, we're gonna take a look at those as well. Now, how long exactly we're gonna spend, like how much time we're gonna spend with those archetypes, depends a little bit on how much I think, like how much time I think they would be worth investing into, right? It's like, it depends on if I look into Memento and I can tell halfway through that the stuff is not looking super strong, then we're maybe just gonna take a look at the very basics and move on. But if it looks like it has potential, maybe we'll throw together a deck list and check it out, you know? And the same for Vaalmonica, right? The other thing we're gonna do is we're going to have some React Andy time today, because I want to watch the 2011 Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG recap, because the boomer that I am, I really want to see it. But it just always happens that when I do like a normal stream, the video is just too long to watch during a normal stream. So I decided to make some time for it today. So we're gonna do that later. And that's gonna be how we're gonna have enough time to do it, because I'm gonna have I dedicated some time for it during today's stream. NH, thank you for the 12 months, and a person typing, thank you for the 10 months and that glorious sub message that you blessed us with. Thank you. So yeah, we have a bunch of different things planned for today. Let's hop right in. It's going to be fun. First things first. These support cards are going to change our lives and are going to be the best cards ever. I wonder why they chose this specific wording on the introduction text to this. I don't know exactly why they would choose this exact wording on it. I never thought that one singular clip would literally go this viral. There's like no shot I could have ever. I don't know why. Anyways, let's move on. Shout outs to YG Organization for watching the stream, I suppose. We got Pillar of the Future, Cyanos. This card is always treated as a Sky Striker card. Now, before I even read the effect, I want to know something that some of y'all Sky Striker fans definitely probably know. Something that I've been wondering is that for a lot of these recent Sky Striker support cards, they are not actually named Sky Striker, and I want to know why that is. Is there a lore reason to that the cards are treated as Sky Striker card, but they're not simply naming them Sky Striker? Is there any what is the reason for that? because it kind of started, I don't know what the first one was, probably the aileron and the Sky Striker Hamp and so on and so forth. And you get a lot of like cards for Sky Striker, and they're all treated as Sky Striker cards, which basically, if something has this thing, this card is always treated as a Sky Striker card. This basically makes from a what is it called? From a game mechanic standpoint, this card might as well be called Sky Striker Cianos or whatever, right? Like it would be the exact same implications for gameplay, but for some reason they don't want to name it. They don't want to name it Sky Striker, but you know, I think it's because they are not a pilot for the mechas. Okay, so what you're saying is the only monsters that can be named Sky Striker are the pilots. Okay, anyways, moving on. I was just wondering that. It has nothing to do with how good the card is. I was just wondering. Level 1 Light Machine. Always treated as a Sky Striker card. You can only use the first, second, and third effect of this card's name each once per turn. You can discard a spell, special summon this card from your hand. If this card is normal or special summoned, you can special summon a Sky Striker Ace Rose from your deck or graveyard. Also, you cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck for the rest of this turn, except machine monsters. Ooh. Now, machine, I know Kagari, I know all the Link 1s are machine. Is every single Sky Striker extra deck monster a machine? The Link 2s included? Like, Azalea, they're all machines. Okay. Just, I wasn't sure. Okay. Zeke also, okay. So basically, it locks you pretty much into... When I'm thinking of Sky Striker extra decks, there's no other machines in there, I don't think. Is there any other really good machine extra deck monsters outside of Sky Striker? I don't think there's anything worth mentioning, right? Zeus. Technically, you can still Zeus. You're right. Yeah, if you like Talents or Widow Anchor, an Xyz, you could technically still Zeus. That could be relevant. That's probably the most relevant one. Typhon is a fiend, I believe. I believe Typhon is a fiend. But anyways, I mean, that's interesting because it's both. It works on normal summon or special summon, which means that you can use it as a starter, quote unquote, right? It's like another form of a starter because you can just go normal summon this, summon Rose. You would think that it's like counterintuitive to do this because it fills up your main monster zone with multiple monsters when Sky Striker is known to... It's known to want to have an empty main monster zone, but of course you can just make a link to Sky Striker first, like Azalea or Zeke, and then later on link that one away. Like it's a 1-card Azalea, it's a 1-card Zeke that can later on go into Kagari, Shizuku, Hayate, all that kind of stuff, right? So that's not bad. Another cool thing about this card is that because it works on normal or special summon, and it has a special summon itself effect, it can work to, if you draw multiple normal summons, right? Normally that would be kind of awkward, but here you can just like normal summon your Ray, you normal summon your Ray, and then later on you can still special summon this. Gives this deck a lot of extension potential. Now, how good that is, it remains to be seen, but it's not terrible. You can banish this card from your grave, take one of your roses that is banished or in your grave, either add it to hand or special summoned. Oh! Okay. Now, are we talking? Is this a good card? This card is 3 bodies. This is 3 bodies for Sky Striker, right? Yeah, you can send it with Hayate as well. I mean, this is a good card. No matter how you put it, this is a good card. The only question is how good is it for Sky Striker really? Because like any other archetype, let's be clear here. Pretty much any other archetype would love a card like this. Sky Striker specifically is not known currently in its current iteration Sky Striker is not known to be the most aggressive deck out there, right? But this is something that this is a card that could change that, right? Maybe this gives Sky Striker a way to finally push for game. Or remember when we looked at the Link 4? I don't actually remember the entire effect of the Link 4, but remember when I said, like, it's a lot of work in a deck that doesn't really link climb or anything like that. Like, it's summoning a Link 4 monster in Sky Striker is not the easiest task. Now, this card makes it a lot easier. So the Link 4, with this card in mind, becomes a lot easier to, you know. This card gives you engage since Camellia exists. What is Camellia? Hold up. Sky Striker Camellia. Oh, we don't have that card yet. Is this also in this article? Or is that something that's already been announced a while ago? It's older? Okay, let me quickly remind myself of what it does then, because I don't remember. It's a generic Link 2 Sky Striker Ace. Okay, must first be Link summoned. Can only special summon it once per turn. If you have 3 or less spells in your grave, you can send a Sky Striker card from your deck to the grave. Oh, okay. If this card is sent to the grave, target a monster your opponent controls, special summon this card to their field, and if you do, send that monster to the graveyard. Also shift control to this card's owner during the end phase of this turn. Okay, so what you're saying is I normal summon the Cyanos, summon Rose, make Camellia, Foolish Engage, and then I can turn it into a Kagari. Yeah. Yeah. Now, I will say one thing, and that is that I kind of like the design of this card. I kind of like what they are doing with the Sky Striker support. Because I like Sky Striker, but the deck needs better pushes, basically, right? It needs better pushes to be playable, because it simply is too slow, right? It is simply too slow, and that is only going to change if they make cards like this that give the deck more, like, play patterns, different ways to push. Now, whether this makes it good or not, I don't know. Let's read the other cards first, but it's a pretty good card, I would say, this one. We got a Link 3. Is this the first Link 3 Sky Striker? I mean, that also, if this card is good, this makes this card even better, because this card is basically a one-card Link 3. We got Sky Striker Ace, Azalea Temperance, Dark Machine Link 3. 2+ monsters, including a Link monster. Must first be Link summoned. You can only use the first effect of this card's name once per turn. If this card is special summoned, you can banish a spell from hand or grave, target a monster your opponent controls with 2500 or less attack, equip that face-up monster to discard as an equip spell. I mean, it's not insane. When this card is destroyed by battle, special summon one other Sky Striker monster from hand or grave. It's not insane, but it's a solid tool for Sky Striker, I suppose. You know, it's like it's okay. It's technically, it's just like free removal, as it's an extra deck option. It doesn't have to be completely insane, but it is it's not bad per se, right? It's like fine. When you go second, when you break boards, you can just Link climb into this and take away one of their monsters. It's all right. It's not bad, I don't think. Now, I will say, though, the more Sky Striker cards are released, especially for the extra deck, the tighter the extra deck gets, right? Another option over a Unicorn. I mean, unironically, yeah, it could be used in other decks as well. Now, it's not better than SP Little Knight. Let's be clear with that. Like, it's definitely not gonna be replacing SP Little Knight anytime soon. But if for some reason we want a different alternative to SP Little Knight, you know, we can use IP plus one other monster in any deck pretty much that has a spell card in the grave. You can just banish it and equip your opponent's monster. But yeah, it's definitely like you are right when you say it's a decent target for Masquerena. I just don't think that matters while SP Little Knight is a thing, right? But you're not wrong. We have combination maneuver, engage 0. It's another... Okay, there's no picture for this one. We have a Link 2 machine monster that points left and right, that needs 2 lights and or darks, and it's always treated as a Sky Striker. Ace. You can only special summon engage 0 once per turn, cannot be used as Link material. Now that is important. That kind of sucks. If this card is special summoned, you can target a monster on the field with 25 or more attack, negate its effects until the end of the turn. At the start of the damage step, if this card attacks and you have Ray and Rose in your grave, destroy all monsters your opponent controls. That's... I mean... It's not bad, is it? So basically, because it's a Sky Striker Ace card, you can Ray summon it. So this means if you go second and your opponent makes a big board, 1 Ray can completely out it, right? 1 Ray can basically Raigeki your opponent's board. Because you go normal summon Ray, link into Hayate, Hayate crash into your opponent's monster, Hayate effect send Rose. Then, because Hayate dies by battle, you can bring back Ray, and then Ray quick effect in battle phase, summon this and attack with it, and you have Ray and Rose in the graveyard, right? How can Ray summon it? Wait, does Ray say Link 1? Sky Striker Ace Ray. No, it doesn't. Here. Quick effect, tribute this card. Special summon a Sky Striker Ace monster from your extra deck. This is a Sky Striker Ace card. Ray can summon this. So, and it doesn't say you have to link summon it. Right? So basically, Ray is now Raigeki. Ray is basically Raigeki now. I mean, it's just another option in the extra deck that you probably pull off sometimes, right? You can, don't say Raigeki. I mean, that's the thing about these extra deck monsters, is like, they want you to play Sky Striker with only Sky Striker monsters in your extra deck, basically. And they're giving you some neat tools. I mean, between the Camellia, the Temperance, and the Engage 0, you're getting some decent tools, right? Now, I don't know if this is enough to make Sky Striker meta relevant again. If I had to guess, I would say probably not. Even though these cards are like, this card is very good. This and these other 2 cards are like solid extra deck options. I don't know if this is good enough to make it like an actual good meta contender. Like I said, if I had to guess, probably not. But who am I to say? Who am I to say? There's a lithium testing video anyways, so we can quickly check that out. Neb Hildnia, thank you for the prime. Appreciate that. Thank you so much. I don't know why he put "oh my god, yes" into the thumbnail. I think it's unrelated. I think it's probably it's surely not calculated, right? Surely not a quote or anything. Surely that's not. Surely we're not going viral with this even more. No way, right? Anyways.
Yo, what's up, guys? Welcome back. New Sky Striker cards. And I was hyped. I was really hyped when I first saw them. I think most people do. You know, it's one of the most popular themes, I guess, ever since the cards were released. Then again, I've read the effects a couple of times. At least, you know, yesterday, I think, or a couple of days ago. And I wasn't too hyped after that. I feel that, and I felt that back then as well, that these new cards, new monster, new level 1, a couple of new links as well, that they are like on a very similar level as their new level 4 link.
Okay, so he's using it. I'm guessing he's using it as a blind second strategy because there's Thrust and Lightning Storm, which I guess given the new Link monsters makes some sense.
You know, the what is the name of Spectre, I believe, yeah. which it's decent, but the thing is that there's just no space, or hardly any space in the extra.
Well, Lightning Storm is kind of custom against this. Lightning Storm prevents the Calamity, right?
So more of that in a couple of moments. I think this is a fairly standard Sky Striker deck list, bar of course a new support. One of the new cards being a level 1. The level 1 kind of feels like Mathmech, right? The circular, because you can discard any spell from your hand, for example, to special summon it to the field. And upon summon, that's
This hand is completely busted, by the way.
normal or special summon, you're level 1. Special summons Rose from your deck, right? Yeah, or graveyard, if I'm not mistaken. So it's basically a 1-card Link 2 short set. Plus, that this 1 card, 1.5 card, because you need to discard, could turn itself into a Link 3, because it also has a graveyard effect, banish itself, the level 1, to either Reborn Rose or get the Rose back to the hand. So, you know, Reborn Rose for a Link 3 play. And potentially with some,
So one thing that maybe would change my opinion on the deck is, and I don't know if it's possible, but if you could like OTK from here with just Sky Striker cards in this situation. Let me move over, actually. I'm on the wrong side. If we can OTK from here, that would change my mind a little bit.
Going second, so
you can? That's interesting.
You potentially make this a 1-card, 1.5.
So we go Temperance to attach.
4 because of
Engage.
Hayate, because of drones, right? Hornet drone, etc.
Wait, this is game?
That's potentially a Link 4. So that's cool. That's actually really cool.
No,
the problem
okay.
is that if you use the special summoning effect from the deck...
Did we miss game, or could we have? Or could we just not
special
have?
Summoning Rose, you're locked into... What is it? Machines. I think it's machines, yeah. So no access.
Because that is the thing. Also, when I play Sky Striker in like Master Duel ever, right, which we don't do very often, but when I do, it's like going second, breaking a board isn't super tough with Sky Striker, right? It's like Sky Striker can break boards. It's just what happens after that, right? You kind of struggle to break a board and kill the opponent, but you also struggle to break a board and set up enough like stuff to stop your opponent's follow-up, because a lot of decks in Yu-Gi-Oh these days have crazy amounts of follow-up, right? A lot of decks have crazy amounts of follow-up, and Sky Striker, like, even if you break the board and set up one Widow Anchor or whatever, that was maybe enough in 2019, but one Widow Anchor doesn't stop people from killing you the next turn in 2023, right?
Code, because that's basically the only Link 4 you're running. So that's the biggest deal I have with this new support is that there's hardly any space in the extra deck. There's other cards in the side deck that I definitely want to main deck, like Zeus. Anima is there, because this new level 1 is not a Sky Striker card, it's not Ray, you can't just link it away for any Sky Striker monster. So let's say if your opponent imperms it, you might get stuck or might be stuck for your turn. And again, that's a huge problem for the deck, because you have a monster in your main monster zone, so you need follow-up play after that. Anyway, it could have been a special summon, but you know what I mean. So Anima or Link Karibo are options, but there's just hardly any space in the extra deck. So this is an okay matchup. Problem here is that destroying the field spell is a big deal. It's a problem. Plus, if the level 8 is in graveyard, they can dodge your afterburner rights. But a couple of engages after, and this should be game. Linkage for Hayate, send something from my deck to the graveyard. And I guess with this new level 1, it's basically another card. You could Foolish Burial to the graveyard to get the graveyard effect. Banish itself to get Rose back. So that's all fine, but I mean, I think in most situations you will be sending a spell, right? So the new monsters. A new Link 2. The new Link 2 is, I feel, one of the new links. All of the links.
When will Konami up the extra to 20 cards? I don't feel like that's something they should do. Like, I think the extra deck being limited to 15 cards is a good limitation to play around. I don't like... I think certain decks having trouble with extra deck space is, like, fine, I think. I think one thing they could do... Hear me out. I just had a genius idea, because I think there's like just increasing the extra deck for every single deck out there would be a I think it would be a mistake, because certain decks would just benefit way too much from the extra utility, from the extra deck space, right? But I think there are certain decks out there that where it would be nice if they could play more, like because for example, just the first thing I was thinking of, no bias at all. Salamangreat is a deck where then the entire gimmick of the deck is that you have to play every single monster multiple times, because the idea is that you link them into each other, right? So something that I thought of right now, which I think would actually not be like terrible, is if they made cards where they would print on the card, right? They make a, let's say they make a link monster and they print on it. This card does not count towards your 15 card extra deck limit or whatever. You know what I mean? But it's like a Salamangreat link monster that is only good in Salamangreat anyway, so it doesn't matter for any other deck, right? That is something you could do theoretically, right? But then everyone with Pot of Prosperity in their deck would just play 3 of that as well, right? It has some implications for balancing as well, right? This seems an impossible ruling. Why? What's the issue? Like, it's like when your opponent asks for your extra deck size and you say 18, then they know that that card's in there, right? Like, it wouldn't be a big problem. It would just be it would make specifically Prosperity and Extravagance way better. That is true. Yeah. It was just it's not something that I've thought about forever and have forged a balanced concept in my mind. I was just thinking I like, basically you can make an argument that some decks deserve more extra deck space, right? Like, I would say something like Salamangreat is already not a great deck, right? Salamangreat is already not a great deck. It's not bad, but it's also not insane, right? And it also struggles with extra deck space on top of already being a weaker main deck than other decks, right? But you cannot just lift the extra deck space for every deck, because then other decks would also benefit from that, but you don't want that, right? So maybe you think of a solution for Salad of that nature, right? And then I thought, like, the only way you would do that without lifting the requirement for everybody is you would have to make cards that specifically state that, right? How about it doesn't count if you have 10 Salamangreats in the extra deck? You know what I just noticed? What I just noticed with the idea that I just presented is that the problem it would be, like, if let's just say they make a link monster that says it doesn't count towards the extra deck count of 15, right? The problem with that would be that every single deck would play it, right? There's literally no reason not to play that card. Like, if your deck plays Prosperity, it's literally 3 free banishes for Prosperity. If your deck plays Extravagance, it makes it so that you are way less likely to banish your important stuff, right? Literally everybody would play it, right? Which is probably not ideal in terms of card design. That's probably not ideal. You would have to find a way to make it so only Salamangreat can play it, right? So you would have to put some other restriction on it, like maybe if you only have fire monsters in your extra deck, it doesn't count towards your extra deck limit or whatever. Or something like, if you only have fire monsters in your extra deck limit is now 20 or something like that, right? They could make cards like this for specifically certain decks, right? Something like that, right? This card can only leave the extra deck by being summoned. For example, that could also technically work, right? But then, even then, if you put the thing is this card can only leave the extra deck by certain thing, you would still play it, right? In every deck, just to make sure just to make your opponent think you're playing Salamangreat, literally. Even if you had it just so, like, it couldn't leave the extra deck, just to bamboozle your opponent, right? That you have 18 extra deck cards, you would still play it, right? Basically, what I'm trying to get to is exactly what someone in chat just said. If you're playing this shitty archetype or this not as good archetype right now, you get to play more extra deck. That I would be fine with. If they found, I don't know exactly what the way would be, right? I don't know exactly what the way would be, but I would be fine with. If they basically lifted the extra deck restriction a little bit for certain decks that really need it, right? Because, like, the way they made Salamangreat, of course there's other ways to make the prime example that we're using for some reason is just Salamangreat now. There are other ways how they could make Salamangreat viable. My problem is that they have designed Salamangreat in a way that you cannot possibly play as they intended it to be played, because they just gave it way too many extra deck cards, right? Like, you cannot play Salamangreat with it's way more than you can even fit into a 15 card extra deck. It's not possible to play Salamangreat as intended, pretty much, which is kind of awkward, right? Because even with just the Link monsters, you would have more than 15, but they also made, you know, they have Xyz, they have fusions, they have synchros. It's like, it's just not possible to play a deck like this, right? But it's all of course. I think it would be an interesting approach to a deck, because we've seen so much like legacy support, so many ways to make a deck better, right? But we've never had them mess with certain decks being able to adjust. And this, for example, this is something that has been done in other card games as well. Like I'm just thinking of Hearthstone, where they gave the decks certain bonus effects if they had certain cards in there, if your decks followed certain restrictions. Like, for example, Reno Jackson, who had an effect if your deck had only one-ofs, or there was one thing where you could only put well, in Hearthstone the cards have mana costs, right? And it was like you can only have even cost cards in your deck, you can only have odd cost cards in your deck, and then you get a bonus effect, right? Something like this, right? Like they have never been messing with that at all, right? And they could theoretically make a deck that can only be played with 60 cards, for example. They could print a card that says you can only put this card in your deck if your deck has 60 cards, for example, and that could be interesting. They could that was basically grass, right? But you know what I'm saying, right? Or they could make it so that you can play less cards as well, maybe. You know, that would be that'd be something to mess around with, maybe. You know, they make a deck that you said that they say, like, if you put these cards into your deck, you get to play less than 40 cards, or you get to play more extra deck, or whatever. You know, I think that'd be something that'd be interesting. I'm not saying it'd be good. It would have to be very carefully balanced. It would have to be very, very carefully balanced. But it is something that I think it could be fun. Anyways, back to Sky Striker.
That were revealed, including the Link 4 being Spectre. I feel the Link 2 is the one that you should definitely, well, main deck, as in the extra deck. You'll see it. It doesn't have the full picture yet, but it's again a Link 2. You can special summon it if you tag out Ray, right, with her effect. So that's okay, because it's again a Link 2. It's a free Link 2 summon. But you'll see the interaction in a couple of duels, and then it like attacks. It's basically a Raigeki for your opponent. So again, that's quite okay. It's also a monster effect negator. So anyway, Kagari hits the field. Problem here is that I think I got Drolled, right? I think so. Yeah, I think so. That's big, you know, how strong Droll and Lockbird is against Sky Strikers. And that basically, well, the game is far from over, but, well, I guess, you know, like Fire King is a very...
Fire King is another deck we need to take a look at some point. My first impression is that without Bonfire and the new Snake Eye level 1, it might not be good enough, but we have to take a look at it eventually, before Bologna.
Similar deck in some way is that it's super grindy with those interactions, popping, destroying.
Fire King is fun. It does look fun. It does look fun, and it's actually successful. It is actually successful in the OCG with the new... but they are all playing Bonfire, I think, and they're definitely all playing the new Snake Eye support, right? The new level 1 from Phantom Nightmare. The question is basically, is it already good without those cards? That is something we need to answer at some point, probably next week.
So it's kind of a slow deck as well, plus the rank 8 pops, you know, like all monsters, plus hits your opponent's back row. So again, I need to, even though I'll set back 1 extra turn because of Droll, I have to keep myself into the duel, or in the duel at least. And
without Populace, it's inconsistent. We'll just see. We'll see.
Because of the, what is it called, the Spell and Trap Negator there, I eventually...
Firewoman too. Oh right, they probably play the princess thingy.
I get Drolled again, and this is the card that I just lose to, because it prevents me from obviously prevents me from searching. Oh,
my face when you cannot Soravis, Droll, and Lockbird.
Obvious, right? But it kind of makes my thrust useless. It you know, makes more engages useless because, you know, Gagari engage, etc. And that's just a huge deal. Plus, I wasn't able to chain my Widow Anchor here in this situation. Again, big deal. So I go for the Link 3. The Link 3, I guess, is very similar to Thousand Eyes Restrict. Upon summon, upon Link Summon, or Special Summon, you can target the monster, and I'm not so sure why the attack stat is there. You can target the monster from your opponent with 25.
It was already meta pre-Phantom Nightmare? Yeah, we're gonna look at it. Don't worry.
This was okay, because it kind of dodges your bird, right? Your, what is it, your Fire King bird from...
Fire King the cards are pretty interesting to me. We're gonna have to, like I said, I've never played it yet, and I haven't built it yet, but the cards are also interesting to me. Now, as far as a freaking Sky Striker, the Sky Striker deck, unironically, if I was just watching this without having the images on the cards, I couldn't really tell if this was Sky Striker with or without support. Like, to me, it looks like it's almost doing the exact same thing as it has always been doing, which is just go second, throw spells at your opponent, hope it's enough to either kill them or set up a Widow Anchor and stuff for next turn and hope they can't kill you back, right? It almost feels like it does the same thing as before, maybe slightly better now.
And, you know, being added to the loop again from Fire Kings. But that troll just got me, and problem here is that even though the Link 3 is destroyed and I can reborn another Sky Striker monster from my graveyard, with the Chainlinks, Ray Chainlink 1, Link 3, Chainlink 2, which got negated by the High King Avatar, right? And that's a small mistake. I should have impermed the Avatar first, the one that negates monster effects, and then I probably would have survived.
Are the Fire King structure decks going to be worth picking up? That is a question that I cannot answer until I've actually tried the deck. I've read I can tell you a couple things. I've read the cards. I think they get solid support, right? But getting solid support is not a guarantee that the deck is going to be good, right? But my impression is that the cards are good. The other thing I know is that it is currently a meta deck in the OCG. I don't think it's the most played deck over there, but they are playing it for sure. Like, it's definitely seeing play together with the Sinful Spoils card, though, right? Like, that's it's a huge budget concern, right? I don't think it's going to be a budget option because it's probably going to need the Sinful Spoils package at some point. But I do think it's going to be good, but I cannot confirm how good it's going to be in the TCG. At the end of the day, I mean, the structure decks compared to other things in Yu-Gi-Oh, right? Structure decks are always lower risk investments, you know, like it's like $30 for 3 structures, and worst case you get a somewhat viable tier 2 to tier 3 deck and some staple reprints. Like, it's like, how bad can it be, right? How bad can the investment go, right? It can't really go terribly wrong. So I think it's like relatively safe to say that it's going to be a fine pickup. But it could be a meta contender, let's say it like that. So I think you're gonna be fine if you pick them up, right? If you enjoy the deck, of course. You know, I mean, look at the deck beforehand and see if you enjoy it, and if you enjoy it, then it's gonna be a fine set, because it also has a couple of good reprints. Like, people in chat are saying it has Droll and Lockbird, which isn't terrible as a reprint. It already had reprints, so it's not like a crazy money card, but it's not bad. I think the Coach King Exceed is also in there. Someone in chat has said that, that would be a decent reprint as well. So, like, yeah, it's fine, I think, either way.
Because again, I would have been able to special summon.
You could probably pick up the Fire King cards by themselves for under 10, to be honest. Well, that's a different story, right? Like, if you are not looking at the reprints at all, if you don't need any of the staples in it, then it's gonna be always better to just go ahead and buy the singles after release, right? It's like, you know, like, it's fine. If you only want the Fire King cards, you can probably just go to like Card Market and pick them up as singles after the thing releases, right? That's always going to be that way.
You know, reborn 2 monsters, and I had Thrust in hand, so the game would have been a bit different. Problem is just Fire King, especially backed up by Droll, just keeps recycling through its stuff. And here is the situation where I was talking about, like, the normal summon getting negated, and there was, like, currently in my extra deck, no answers to get it off field. Sure, there is the field spell, right? There is the multi-roll as well to potentially pop
Droll commons are £5? There's no way, right? Droll got a rare reprint. Hold up. There's no way. Droll is still this expensive. There is no way. I do not believe you. Give me a second. Droll and Lockbird. Oh, it did go up a lot, dude. I remember When we opened Tactical Masters, it was a lot cheaper. The rare Droll Lockbirds? God damn. Okay. That was over. I guess that was over a year ago. You're right. I kind of forgot how long ago this was. Is this the last Droll reprint? I mean, Tactical Masters. It might be the last one. Yeah? Oh, okay. It's been a while. I didn't remember it being so long since they reprinted it. Okay, I guess that makes it a decent reprint in the structure deck. Yeah, okay. My bad. I didn't think it was €3 still.
To get it off of the field. So those are all definitely options, but I'm only running one field spell and one multi-roll, because again, it's a going second deck. And, what was I about to say? Yeah, it's going second deck, so sometimes it feels kind of awkward having, first of all, going second. You want to deal with an established board, and you're having multiple of the continuous spell, right? The spell with the judgment one. So use a field spell, yeah, multi-roll being face up on field. Try targeting my Ogagari, which should be popped, yeah. Engage getting those beneficial draws, because we know the card in hand. So this should be game, no? Yeah, it should be game.
I mean, this is Omega game, dude.
Rose. No, okay, sending Rose with Hayate, and yeah, this is more than enough. I was thinking of, but as you saw, there was already 41 cards in the main deck. Like, because of the new level 1, the one that special summons Rose from the deck, for example, I was thinking of maybe even...
Yeah, I mean... Look, let's move on. Sky Striker, the cards help. Do they help enough? I don't think so. But like, you know, they're here. I don't hate them. They are not the best cards ever, and I don't think they're going to change my life, is what I'll say. I don't think they're going to change my life. Would they change your life if the level 1 was fire? Maybe, yeah. Okay, I want to give quickly. People have been telling me to watch this one. From Garrett, I want to say Shire. But I want to give a shout out to them because I looked through it this morning. I'm not gonna. I feel weird reacting to it. I'd feel weird just watching the guy pointing out my finals feature match from Utrecht and what I did well and so on and so forth. I'd feel weird reacting to it on stream, but I still want to give a shout out to Garrett Shire because I have been watching some of the other videos on the channel and I found them quite enjoyable. So even though I'm not gonna live react to the video praising me live on stream, still you can have a look at it if you want. I'll put the link to the channel in the chat, you know. But we're not gonna live react to the video about myself, okay? Notice the red bar is full. Yeah, no, I watched it because I wanted to know what it was about. That's what I just said. You're acting like you're like Detective Conan out there when I just said that. The Steven thumbnail is good. Yeah, it's good, yeah. All right. HCKO, thank you for the 11 months. It's an interesting question. Wait, hold up. What is the difference between the way the striker support was done compared with the Altergeist support? I mean, technically, there isn't a huge difference. Because the way... I mean, okay. Both Altergeist and Sky Striker are decks from like 2018, 2019 that used to be very reliant on grind game, right? Like, Altergeist did it with trap cards, Sky Striker did it with spell cards, but for the most part, both of these decks were relatively control-y and grindy. It was like the 2018-2019 definition of control decks, I would say. you would first think of Altergeist and Sky Striker, right? Like, if you think of combo, you think of Thunder Dragon. If you think of mid-range, you think of Orcus and Salamangreat. And if you think of the control decks in 2018-19, you think of Altergeist and Sky Striker, right? And so I feel like what they did with Altergeist when they gave them support, I believe it was this year. Yeah, it was this year, I'm pretty sure. Maybe it was end of last year. I don't remember exactly how long it's been since they made the Altergeist support. But my impression of the Altergeist support was that they tried to make a deck that was controlly and slow. They tried to make it faster, right? They tried to make it able to do more things in one turn. Maybe also going second, right? Instead of just having to set 4 and pass into your opponent's full combo board. They tried to give it more things to do, basically, right? And they are doing similar things with the Sky Striker right now, right? So the question is whether that's going to, or whether that's a good approach, right? Because the way I see it is that, first of all, the fact that Yu-Gi-Oh is so fast is already something that, I'm not going to say it's a problem, because I don't think it's always a problem, but it's something that people criticize, at least, right? It's something to talk about. It's something to consider whether it's problematic or not, right? The other thing is that, do you really want, basically, let me rephrase this. The core question is, do you want grindy, slow / control decks in the game or not, right? I think the answer to that question is yes. I think control / grindy decks should exist because it's a card game. People enjoy different kind of decks. It's not something that not every deck should be mid-range / combo, because honestly, the line between mid-range and combo is pretty damn thin right now in Yu-Gi-Oh! Like, I would argue the only difference between mid-range, like if a deck's board can be beaten with board breakers, it's usually considered mid-range, because like something like Unchained, for example, is a deck that when it gets to do its full combo, it probably wins, but if you have the right board breakers or whatever, you can play into it, as opposed to a deck like Manadium, where if Manadium does its thing, right, its full combo, your Dark Ruler is not gonna do shit. Your Evenly Matched is not gonna do shit. You just lose the game, right? If they go full combo, right? That's basically the only difference. Both decks basically are combo decks because they perform a combo. The only reason why Unchained is considered to be more mid-range is because it's technically beatable, and that's why it has to play for more turns, right? Manadium doesn't have to play for multiple turns, dude. If he gets to play one turn fully, the game is over, right? And that's the only difference, I think, between combo and mid-range. Even if the line between the two in modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Is super, super slim, right? On the same wave, the difference between control and something that usually is different, right? In other games, there's a significant difference between control decks and stun decks, right? In Yu-Gi-Oh!, that line is basically not there anymore. When you say control deck, everyone just assumes you mean stun. Right? Like, that's basic. People think that activating skill drain is you're controlling your opponent by activating skill drain. That's what they think, right? Which is technically not what it is about, right? Like, a control strategy doesn't aim to just lock your opponent out of playing. You just try to control the extent to which your opponent is playing, you know? It's a very theoretic, like, game theoretic topic. But basically, to answer the question from earlier, what they've been trying to do with Sky Striker and Altergeist is they've been trying to make them more mid-range over control. Because they used to be control decks, and now they're trying to make them something that they were not meant to be. They're making them more into mid-range because that is the only thing that seems to work. Pretty much, right? Like, they're doing it because they want Sky Striker and Altergeist to become better decks, right? And the definition of better deck just means you have to be a mid-range deck or a combo deck in modern Yu-Gi-Oh, right? And so, or a stun deck, right? The element of control is basically vanishing from modern Yu-Gi-Oh, which is pretty much something that I feel like they've recognized, and they have two possible avenues that they could go. They could either make decks that are so good at controlling the game that the control archetype comes back, right? Like they would have to make decks basically good enough to control the game, but they have to put restrictions on them to not make it so they end up doing mid-range or combo stuff, right? You have to somehow make a deck that can control the game without stunning the opponent, but also without turning into a mid-range or combo deck, which is a very hard thing to do. The closest they've gotten to, I will say it, the closest they've gotten to in recent years was when they made runic cards. The only problem with runic cards is that they made them too good and too synergistic with both combo and stun. That was their problem, basically. This is also the reason why I like runic cards so much, is because they represent a control playstyle, right? But in reality, they end up going way better with stun or mid-range / combo, right? It's like, it doesn't actually, like, the pure runic deck doesn't exist. Everyone just plays it with either a combo engine or a floodgate engine, which is why it was kind of like a what I would call, like, it was a good, they are good cards, but they are a failed attempt at making a good control deck, because their way of forcing the runic cards to go into a control game was basically like, hey, if you use these strong control cards, you don't have a battle phase, right? And so you have to play the long game, right? Which, you know, that does work in theory, but they just forgot to somehow enable it in a way. Like, they had to put something on runic that made it less synergistic with either floodgates or like combo, right? But that's one avenue, right? One avenue is you can just make good control decks to basically bring back the archetype that is control, right? The other alternative is you can just turn existing control decks into mid-range decks to keep the archetype playable, right? Which basically, turning Altergeist into a mid-range deck or turning Sky Striker into a mid-range deck could keep the archetype alive, but it sacrifices the combo type, the control type deck, right? So what I would prefer is if they made good control decks again. That is the one thing about modern Yu-Gi-Oh that I kind of miss, is control decks. I like control decks. And when I say control deck, once again, please, I don't mean stun. I don't want to stun my opponent out of playing the game. I want my opponent to play the game, and I want to interact with them to get to do my thing. Basically, Paleo in 2017, pretty much. Right? For example, right? Paleo in 2017, there was not much in there that stopped your opponent from actually playing the game. You would let your opponent play the game. You would just interrupt them here and there with like 1v1 interruptions and stuff like that, and get your game going that way, right? I enjoyed that a lot in previous years. It is also why I enjoyed Sky Striker when it first came out. The very first iteration of Sky Striker I enjoyed a lot. The more it turned into, like, after Halka Firebrax and stuff like that, the less I enjoyed it. The more it was like, hey, I'm just gonna go Halk into Celine, into Axis Code, into Kill You. That is not something that I enjoyed with Sky Striker. I enjoyed 2018 Sky Striker, when you played like a very slow and grindy game, right? When you didn't have any form of like huge damage pushes. The only thing you could do with Sky Striker in 2018 was literally Shizuku Pass. You didn't have anything else, right? There was no other way to do it. And the people are mentioning decks right now. I would say something like Naturia Runic is the definition of a mid-range deck, pretty much. Like, that is my second favorite, pretty much. Like, I when I say these things, sometimes it might sound very critical of the game. There's still a lot of stuff in Yu-Gi-Oh that I enjoy. Don't get me wrong. Like, there's still a lot of things about Yu-Gi-Oh that I really, really enjoy, and I overall enjoy the game a lot. I also really like mid-range decks. I'm not the biggest fan of combo, and I'm not the biggest fan of stun, but like mid-range and control are two things that I really, really enjoy. And even if we don't really have control decks right now, I still get to enjoy a lot of mid-range decks, because let's be real, mid-range has been the most powerful way to play the game in forever, right? Like the most powerful decks from recent years have all been mid-range decks. The combo decks, even right now, the combo decks are all dabbling around in tier 2, right? The all those kind of things are like they're all in tier 2. Mid-range is the king of modern Yu-Gi-Oh, I think. And there's not much that comes close. Like you look at all of the decks right now, they're all, I would classify them as mid-range decks, even though, of course, everything in modern Yu-Gi-Oh is probably also considered a combo deck. But with the definition of combo that I presented earlier, you would put decks like Unchained, Rescue Ace, Pearly, you would put them more into the mid-range category, right? And combo decks are more like the Manadium, the Manadium, the Rikkas, and so on and so forth, right? There's a clear difference there, right? But yeah, I mean, the thing is, in practice, these kind of definitions of control, combo, mid-range, stun, whatever, they do kind of, you know, you can't always put an easy name on every single deck because things are just so different all the time. But yeah, Lab is considered mid-range. Mid-range, like lab is a weird mix of a certain thing. It depends which lab version you have. There's definitely been lab versions, like Trap Lab was literally just a stun deck, pretty much. Like lab, like Trap Labyrinth is a stun deck. I would say Furniture Labyrinth is somewhere between control and mid-range, but I think it's more mid-range than control, if I have to be honest with you. Like I don't think lab is, like, you know, I don't think it's super control-y anymore. But it has a lot of control elements, either way. Bring back Mystic Mine? Okay. So we had all this discussion. And your takeaway is bring back Mystic Mine. I see you. Vanquish Soul is pretty control-y. Vanquish Soul is mid-range with some control elements, I would say. I don't think Vanquish Soul is considered control. No shot. Like the main thing that you would need, by the way, if anyone is wondering, what you would need to bring control back into the game is you would have a deck. They would need to make a deck that can actually go second into boards with its own engine without the goal of killing your opponent or whatever. Like it would need to be a deck that can handle your opponent's board and follow up, which is a lot to ask with how modern Yu-Gi-Oh decks are being made, by the way. Like it's modern Yu-Gi-Oh decks are insane at creating boards and having follow-up, right? It's very tough to even think of a way to create a deck that could handle their board and their follow-up, right? So basically they would have to make cards that are good at doing that, but they would have to make restrictions. They would have to put restrictions on those cards so that they are not abusable in like combo decks, right? Or like to just go second and kill your opponent straight up, right? Those are, by the way, that's the reason you can clearly see when they intended to make a deck control-y, because they have those sort of restrictions. That is the exact reason why Sky Strikers all only work if you have no monsters in the main monster zone, right? That was their drawback to make it a control deck. And that is why Runic skipped the battle phase. That was their drawback to make them a control deck, pretty much. That is, you can clearly see the intention there. What about hand trap control decks like Marin says? That is just mid-range, brother. That is just mid-range. All right. Fun little discussion we had. I enjoyed that. It's funny what can happen if you decide to not put the Sky Striker Ace copy pasta into your sub notification, isn't it, chat? Isn't it crazy that who would have thought that if you put a genuine, interesting question into your sub message, you get a genuine, interesting discussion out of it. But anyways, you would never do that. What do you think about Mannadium coming to Master Duel? I don't know. I'm not a huge Mannadium fan, but I also don't hate Mannadium. There's like other decks I hate more, for sure. No Master Duel today? We might do Master Duel later. The thing is, I have some things planned for today. I have some things planned for today. And once we are done with those, we're gonna fill the rest of the stream with Master Duel, basically. That's my plan, pretty much. Now, we're gonna move from some very theoretical discussions into some more practical things. Before we go into the 2011 Yu-Gi-Oh! Recap after, and then if we have more time after, we're just gonna play some Master Duel. We are going to look at Memento and Vaalmonica now. In a much, like, it's gonna be a smaller segment. All right. I wonder if that sub message is going to spark a discussion of any sorts. All right, I appreciate the subs regardless. Thank you. Okay, what I meant to say is, we're gonna take a small look at Vaalmonica and Memento. The extent to which we're going to look at these archetypes depends a little bit on how much I think they have potential. Like, if I just read these cards now, because it's been a while since I've read these, if I read them now and I feel like there is not really much going on with these, then we're probably going to move on relatively quickly to the next one. If I feel like there's potential, we might build a deck and maybe even, you know, look at some combos and so on and so forth. It depends on how much I like it, basically, right? But so far, just as an introduction, because it is always important to remember, like, you know, certain factors when going into a deck discussion. I am somewhat biased here because everything I've heard so far about Vaalmonica and Memento has been relatively negative, I want to say, right? And so I just want to preface that my first impression of these is not the greatest, simply because it seems like everyone is in agreement that they are not that great. However, I still want to, like, basically have a look on my own. Like, I want to take a look at it still, just to make sure, you know, like, it wouldn't be the first time that people think something isn't as good and then it turns out to be a solid deck or whatever. So it's always good to give stuff a chance, even if people say it's not great. All right. We are going to begin with Vaalmonica, which is a pendulum archetype, but it actually is which normally you would be like pendulum resident sleeper, right? Everyone is pendulum bedge in my chat. But this one is actually quite the cool design, I think. And they also have some link monsters to it, yeah. Anyways, the two main deck monsters are pendulums. And they work. I have to check how they work first. Frozen Soul, thank you so much for the 5 gifties. Appreciate the support. Thank you so much. You're amazing. Appreciate that. Enjoy the subs, everybody. Okay. We have both of them. No, one is a Fairy Dark and one is a Fiend Light monster. Interesting. Each time you gain life points while you control a Fiend monster card in your other pendulum zone, place 1 resonance counter on this card. Once per turn, when an opponent's monster declares an attack, you can immediately, after this effect resolves, link summon a Vaalmonica. And then this one, I think they are kind of like, they are like opposite of each other. So this one is, each time you take effect damage while you control a fairy monster card in your other zone, place a resonance counter on this card. Monsters your opponent control lose 100 attack for each resonance counter on your field. So the pendulum effects for both of these cards are very mediocre, to say the least. So the Angel has a monster effect of, if this card is in your hand, you can discard 1 other card. Take 1 Demono, which is this one. take one of the demon from your deck, place this card and that card in your pendulum zone. During your main phase, if this card was normal or special summoned this turn, banish a Vaalmonica normal spell trap from your grave. Apply whichever effect on that card includes gaining life points. You can only include each of its effect once per turn. This one is, if this card is in your hand, discard one other card, take a Vaalmonica Angel from your deck, place both in the pendulum zone. During your main phase, if this card was normal or special summon this turn, banish a Vaalmonica normal spell trap effect from your grave. Apply whichever effect on that card includes taking damage. So both of these cards are basically the same card in just opposite, right? I'm assuming, from a game design standpoint, I'm assuming that all of the spell cards have one effect that gains life points and one effect that takes damage. And so the angel can copy the effects that gain life points, and the demon can copy the effects that take damage, which is cool design, honestly. Also, another cool design is that both of these, on their own, basically give you access to the other one, right? Like both of these, you have, if you draw the angel, you can discard another card and you get the demon in your scales. If you have the demon, you discard a card, you get the angel, right? And so that's kind of cool. But that is only, so far, this does not do anything. We need to take a look at the links and the spell cards. We have the field spell that I am not going to, I'm going to try and read it. Hold up. Vaalmonica, the agathocacological voice. That wasn't that hard. Okay. When this card is activated, you can add a Vaalmonica monster from your deck to your hand. Poggers, it's Perlorino. Good field spell. Check mark achieved. If a card in your pendulum zone has a third resonance counter placed on it, you can target one monster your opponent controls, take control of it until the end phase, but it cannot declare an attack. You can only use this effect of Vaalmonica thingy once per turn. You can only activate one per turn. Okay, so this is a good card. Because it's a field spell that searches on activation. That already makes it a good card. The other effect, I don't know how hard it is to pull off, but I'm going to be honest with you, that is just a bonus on a card that is already good. And if you ever get to resolve this effect, it's crazy. Because if a card searches a card from your deck and takes control of one of your opponent's monster, that is insane value. That is insane value. We have Vaalmonica Intonare. Apply one of these effects. Unless you have a Vaalmonica card in your pendulum zone, your opponent chooses the effect. Okay, so if you have no Vaalmonicas in your hand, in the opening hand, your opponent chooses which one you have. Okay. Gain 500 life points. Then if you have any monster in your graveyard that can be special summoned, your opponent chooses one for you to special summon to your field. Okay, I guess the trick here is to only have one monster in the graveyard or only have monsters that are good to summon. This makes it a little bit counterintuitive to play hand traps in this deck, right? Because if you go second and you have hand traps in your graveyard, your opponent can just give you the hand trap. Or you take 500 damage, then you can add a level 4 monster from your graveyard to your hand. Okay, so two solid effects. Two solid effects for you to use. All right. We have Vaalmonica Skelta. Apply one of these effects, and unless you have a Vaalmonica card in your pendulum zone, your opponent chooses the effect. Is that the thing? Yeah, that's the thing on all the... Okay, like I said, all the cards here, except for the field spell, have basically a light effect and a dark effect, right? One effect that gains life points, one effect that takes damage. Already know that it's going to be cringe to play against this deck in time, but okay. This one is gain 500 life, then you can place one card from your hand on the bottom of the deck, then draw 2 cards. Take 500, then you can add a Vaalmonica spell trap from your deck to your hand. Ooh, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. This one is even good if you don't open any Vaalmonicas, because no matter what your opponent chooses, it's a fine card, right? No matter what your opponent does, it's fine. Call Nash for how it's pronounced. Well, if it's the Italian pronunciation, it's Skelta, right? Or I don't know. Well, whatever. Shelta? I don't know. Shelta? Okay. Apply one of these effects, unless you have a Vaalmonica card in your pendulum zone, your opponent chooses the effect. Gain 500 life points, then excavate cards from the top of your deck until you excavate a Vaalmonica card. Add that card to your hand. Okay. I guess the only thing that can go wrong here is that it can add itself, right? So like that's the worst thing, is like you gain 500 and then you start excavating and you get the same one, because I'm assuming it's once per turn. Yeah, it is once per turn. Take 500 damage, then you can send a Vaalmonica card from your deck to the grave. So far, I don't think there was great value with graveyard effects. Maybe the traps have a graveyard effect, but this seems to be the weakest one out of the bunch so far. Maybe the traps have some crazy graveyard effect. Apply one of these effects. You must control a Vaalmonica monster card to activate and to resolve this effect. If you control a Vaalmonica Link monster, you can apply both effects in sequence. Gain 500 also for the rest of this turn. Your opponent cannot target Vaalmonicas with card effects. Take 500 damage, then you can negate the effects of one effect monster your opponent controls until the end of this turn. This is a lot of work for a mediocre infinite impermanence, but it's alright, I guess. The monsters can banish the spells. True. Like, if you have a monster already, you can foolish a different spell that you want to use. Yeah, that's true. That's true. And then we have Followed Rhythm. Apply one of these effects. You must control a Vaalmonica monster card to activate and to resolve this effect. If you control a Link monster, you can apply both. You can destroy a spell trap on the field, and you can return a monster from the field to the hand. Okay, that is better because it's a 2-for-1, but only if your opponent has a good target for it. Both trap cards, I want to say, are mediocre in terms of the payoff, but they're not bad. They're not bad. Then we have Duralume, the Vaalmonican Heathen Hallow, and then we have Zebufera, the Vaalmonican Hallow Heathen. Okay, so it's Heathen Hallow and Hallow Heathen. There's a dark and a light again. One effect monster cannot be link summoned unless you have 3 or more resonance counters on fairy monster cards in your pendulum zone. Okay, fairy means it has to be on this one, because this is a fiend, right? If you want to summon this, you need to have 3 counters on this. And I assume if you want to summon this, you have to have 3 counters on this. Okay. You can only special summon Duralume once per turn. If this card is link summoned, you can target monsters your opponent controls up to the number of resonance counters in your pendulum zone, destroy them. You can remove 3 resonance counters from your pendulum zone, and then this card can attack up to 3 at times. And then this one is, cannot be link summoned unless you have 3 or more resonance counters on the fiend. You can only special summon Zebufera once per turn. If a card you control would be destroyed by battle or card effect, you can remove 3 resonance counters from your pendulum zone instead. Once per turn, quick effect, you can target one of your Vaalmonica normal spell traps that is banished or in your grave. Apply that card's activation effect. Like, I want to say one thing right off the bat. I think the design on this is cool. The design on this is cool because it's a completely new take on the pendulum mechanic that has almost no synergy with any other like pendulum deck out there. It's just a very cool flavor of this archetype, I think. Now, how do you get 3 counters? They start with 0, and then you have to basically gain life points 3 times. You don't? It seems really hard to perform 3 life point gains. And then I understand that the whole gimmick of the deck is to set up the pendulum scales, and that's cool, right? The problem is that the deck itself, like, you need to draw multiple monsters pretty much, right? You need to draw multiple monsters because if you don't open multiple monsters, you won't even have a monster. You won't even have a monster to link into these because you can't link with your pendulum scales. It gains counters really slow if you only play it pure. Yeah, I would think so. I would think so. I mean, another way you could use these cards, because the scales actually have no restrictions, is if you draw one of these guys, you have pendulum scales set up instantly in any deck, right? Like thinking outside the box here. You could play these in a deck with a lot of level 4s, theoretically, right? And just have 2 cards in your deck that are basically instant scale setup, because you have scale 3 and scale 5 immediately. I don't know if there's a deck that has a lot of level 4s and wants the extra extenders, right? But yeah. Punk pays life points? Yeah, Punk does not work because it says you have to take effect damage. It's not the same as paying life points. I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't know if we really have to try this deck. Because I don't see... As much as I like the design, I really do like the design. I don't see the... It seems like a lot of work for very little payoff. Because what's the payoff? I have a... This thing is a Raigeki, and then it can attack 3 times, which is not going to be game because it's only 2,500. This thing doesn't really do anything outside. I mean, the effect is good because it just copies a card and you can use it again. So it's like a free bonus effect, right? Because you can link into this. If you have 3 on both, you can like link into this first, copy another spell, get another +1, and then link this one off into this one. But I just don't see how this deck wins, right? Because you can sometimes steal a monster, sure, but it can't attack even. You have an impermanence and you have a compulse. So as much as I like the design, I feel like they could have made it a lot better, you know? Now, it is one of those things where, once again, we're talking about a deck build pack here, right? We're talking about this could be a situation like Rescue Ace, where we looked at Rescue Ace for the very first time, and at the very first release, Rescue Ace was not playable at all. Not playable whatsoever. But then after they got more support, maybe. Like, the setup here isn't bad, right? They have a great field spell for consistency. They have great spell cards for consistency. These 2 are also good for consistency. They have good effects in hand to set up the scales immediately. They have good effects on the field to copy the spell card effects. They're good cards. It's just not it's not finished yet. It doesn't look finished. So the question here is, or rather, my impression is that this is not a playable deck yet. I hate to say it, in case anyone had great hopes for this. It doesn't look like a playable deck. Outside of maybe being a splashable engine in other decks. Maybe. But even then, I don't really see like a great use for this engine, right? I don't think it's a functioning deck yet. But who knows with like support in the future, right? Who knows what's going to happen to this? And this is really just up in the air. This is just you'd have to completely guess. You have to completely guess whether these are going to become good or not. Rescue Ace had a win condition right off the bat. That's the big difference. Well, that is true. Rescue Ace was kind of the opposite. Rescue Ace was lacking consistency cards, but they already had the big payoff, right? They had the very, very big payoff at the end. They were just missing consistency, and so they printed consistency for it, right? Pearly, kind of the same. They already had all their win conditions. They had the Noir and everything. They just needed more spells for consistency, and they needed better ways to get to the trap card. So they made Sleepy, Pearl Lily, and so on and so forth. Pearly just got custom cards, to be honest. Like, they just did everything. They gave it power and consistency and everything. This deck has consistency, right? Like this deck is already incredibly consistent, but it's at the moment it is incredibly consistent at doing nothing, I feel like. Because it has, like, you can play 3 of this, 3 of this, 3 of the field spell. This one is also technically a searcher. This one is also consistency. This one's also decent, you know? Like, this one's not as great, but like, it's fine. It seems like a very consistent deck already, but it doesn't do anything right now. Right? Noir was first batch. Well, I'm saying X purely Noir. The big towers, the goal of the deck, right? That one was out first set. The small Noir came later. Yeah. Anyways, if they give this deck support in the form of an actual goal to play towards, like, I'm thinking maybe a monster that you want to normal summon and that has a great effect, and maybe something that makes it so you can actually make an end board that does something, right? Then maybe we're talking. Because the link monsters are not good enough to actually play for, right? They're actually not good enough to play for. The only thing I like about the link ones is that one cool interaction is you have scale 3 and scale 4. So if you normal summon a Vaalmonica and then you link it into these, because these have down arrows, you can immediately pendulum summon back the thing that you used, right? For the link one. So that's kind of neat, but that's not enough to make it good. I don't think that's enough to make the deck good. Unfortunately. It does give me Evil Twin vibes. It does give me some Evil Twin vibes. It's kind of the same design where you have like the light side and the dark side, and they work together. It's cool. I like it. I like the design. I just don't think it's a functioning deck yet, unfortunately. They need a way to get counters faster for sure. Well, that you could just achieve by making more spell cards. Right? You would just need to make more spell cards that are good to play 3 copies of, that you can just power through and gain counters, right? Pretty much. Or they could also just make cards that give you counters, right? If they made a card, for example, if they made a card that says gain 500 life points, then you can place a resonance counter on both of your skills. That's like 2 counters for the angel with 1 card. So spell power mastery? Well, technically, yeah. Like that kind of thing. Anyways, cool archetype, not finished. Is my take on Vaalmonica after reading through all the cards. I like the design. I don't think it's worth spending a lot of time before YCS Utrecht to look at this deck, because I don't see what it even does. Memento is an archetype that has a lot more cards than Vaalmonica. For some reason, there's 12 Memento cards when there's only 8? No, 10 together with the extra deck. Partially because Memento is a deck, which I find interesting about the deck, is that it doesn't have any extra deck cards. It's a deck that does not focus on accessing your extra deck that much. Instead, it has its boss monsters in good old fashion. In good old fashion, they have their boss monster in their main deck, which is, something. And their boss monster is Memento Tekutlika Combined Creation, which is just a 5k dude. Cannot be normal summoned or set, must be special summoned from hand or graveyard by shuffling 5 other mementos with different names from hand and or grave into the deck extra deck. While you control no other monsters, this card can attack all monsters your opponent controls once per turn. If your opponent activates a card or effect, you can special summon a memento monster from hand or grave. It's just a big dude. It's a big ass dude, and this also explains why they gave them so many monsters, because you need 5 different ones in order to summon this thing. And if I remember correctly, there are actually 1-card combos that do this in this deck, which we can see if we can figure it out in a second. But yeah. So all the other monsters in Memento up here are like new, like ghost skeleton versions of cards that already existed, which I have listed down here just for the funsies. We have Tri-Horned Dragon. We have Tatsu no Toshigo, which is this thing, which we don't even have in the TCG. We have Darkblade, obviously. We have Anguish, which is another OCG only vanilla. We have Keymace. And we have Goblin Calligrapher. Which is kind of cool. Bad chest, you know. Anyways, if you have 3 or more Memento monsters with different names in your grave, special summon this card from your hand. You can only special summon the Tri-Horned Dragon once per turn this way. If this card on the field is destroyed by a card effect, target 3 face-up cards on the field, including a Memento card you control, destroy them. You can only use each effect of Memento and Horned Dragon once per turn. This card is bad. I think. Like, in terms of freaking... This does not even feel like a card that's printed in 2023. Like, this is a special summon if you have 3 monsters in your grave, kind of thing, you know? And then the payoff for all this work... The payoff for all this work is that when it dies by card effect, which includes your own card effect, right? It's your own card effect, so you can destroy it yourself and then pop... You get an Icarus attack, basically, is your payoff. Now, Icarus attack is a card from 2006. I don't know, man. This card does not seem great. This card does not seem great. We have the Horse, the level 5. If you do not control any face-up monsters other than Mementos, you can special summon this card from your hand. This does work on an empty board, I believe. You don't have to have a Memento, I'm pretty sure. During your main phase, you can destroy 1 Memento monster you control and send any number of Memento monsters with different names from your deck to the grave whose level are less than or equal to the destroyed monster's original level. So theoretically, you know, what they want you to do, for example, is summon Tri-Horned Dragon, then summon Tatsu no Toshigo, destroy your Tri-Horned Dragon, then you get to Foolish level up to level 8, and then destroy 1 card you control and 2 cards your opponent controls. You're not going to do that, but yeah. This card is good, though. This card is good because what it does is you just special summon itself on empty board, and then you target itself for its own effect, and then you get to Foolish up to level 5. And I believe this is 1-card combo, but we'll have to take a look at that in a second. Darkblade. If this card is normal or special summon, discard a Memento card, target a spell trap your opponent controls, destroy it, literal 2006 ass effect. During your main phase, you can destroy 1 Memento monster you control, and if you do, special summon a level 3 or lower Memento from your deck. Now, that's the effect that matters. Destroy Memento you control, special summon a level 3 or lower Memento from your deck. Basically, Lone Fire Blossom-ish? You know? Basically, Lone Fire Blossom-ish. That is basically what this is trying to do. And it just... These sort of effects are relevant because they just put more and more Mementos into the graveyard to be able to have enough names for the combined creation. Then we have Anguish. If this card is normal or special, you can add a Memento monster from your deck to your hand. Except Anguish, you can target a level 2 or lower Memento in your grave, destroy Memento monster you control, and if you do, special summon the targeted monster. Now, this card is good. Of course, on summon, it's basically this is Oviraptor. Right? This is pretty much just Oviraptor, because it searches and it gets to destroy 1 on the field to bring 1 back from the grave. Then we have Mementolan Mace. During your opponent's main phase, if you control the combined creation, quick effect, discard, target a face-up monster your opponent controls, trade control of it during the end phase. Okay, now that's the first thing that I'm reading that would actually make it worthwhile to bring out your boss monster, because you have a quick effect, take control of your opponent's monster, which is a pretty nice disruption. During your main phase, you can destroy Memento monster you control. If you do, add a Memento card from your deck to your hand, except Mace. So during your turn, decent effect on a level 1, and during your opponent's turn, it's a pretty good hand trap if you get to summon the 5k. Mementolan Goblin. During the main phase, if you control Tekutlika, Combined Creation, quick effect, discard this card. For the rest of this turn, your opponent cannot target mementos with card effects. Now, this one is a lot worse than the other one, but it works on your turn too. If this is like Misk from like Wish, you know? But it's not great. During your main phase, you can destroy a Memento monster you control. If you do, send up to 2 Memento cards with different names from each other from the deck to the grave, except Goblin. I believe from just the monsters, you can do the 1-card combo into the combined creation off of the Witch alone, right? Because you would go Witch, add Horse, summon Horse, Horse pop itself, send. What do you send? You definitely send these two, right? Another Witch and the 2 1s. Yeah, you send 1 1 3, and then you go Witch, target itself, bring back. What do you bring back? This one? Just Goblin? Big guy revives the witch. Wait, what? What? Mace. Destroy Memento. Add a Memento card from your deck to your hand. Hold up. I need to see it. I need to visualize how many we have. Memento. So if we have the witch, right? I don't have a second witch right now, but let's just. The witch adds the horse. Summon the horse. Activate effect on itself. Send another witch. We just have to pretend that's there because I didn't put 2 into the deck. Send the 2 small. Oops. Send us the 2 small dudes. And then you use Anguish to revive. Destroy a Memento. If you do, add a Memento card from your deck to your hand. Wouldn't you want to revive Goblin here? Because it's Foolishest 2? Like, I feel like you would just revive this, right? And then you go Goblin, destroy itself to send this thing and another name. And then you have 5 different names plus this in the graveyard, right? You would have 2 witches. And then you can bring this out, right? But that's it, right? It's a 1-card combo into the 5k, dude. And then when your opponent does something, you can bring it back. Haven't read the spell. Calm down. We're reading the spell still. I just wanted to see the first combo. But that's basically the idea, right? What does this deck actually do? I'm pretty sure this is what the deck actually does. It summons the level 5 thingy. The level billion. Bring back second witch, which adds the mind control. Yeah, exactly. On your opponent's turn, you have a second witch in the graveyard, right? Your opponent does something, you revive it, you trigger its effect, you add the key mace, and you get to steal their monster. But that's it, right? I mean, 1 card. Like, I would argue that 1 card transforming into a 5k that turns into a quick effect, steal your opponent's monster, is not terrible. My problem is that you have to play so many cards to get there. It's like your engine is so large just to do that. And not all of your engine is good starters. Like the only one card starters for this are Darkblade and the Anguish. The other ones alone, I don't think they get there, which is a problem. Right? Anyways, we have Bone Party. Destroy a memento monster in your hand or face-up field. Take one memento monster from your deck with a different name and either add it to your hand or special summon it in defense position. During your main phase, banish this card from your graveyard, then target a memento monster you control. If it attacks a defense position monster this turn, inflict piercing battle damage to your opponent. You can only use each effect once per turn. So this is kind of like a conditional emergency teleport, which isn't bad. It's all right. And it gives your big dude piercing. But yeah, that's it. Then we have Memento and Boneback. If a face-up memento monster you control leaves the field because of an opponent's card, special summon a Memento combined creation from hand or deck, ignoring its summoning condition. If your opponent moves a memento monster out of your grave while this card is in your grave, you can banish this card, special summon as many memento monsters as possible with different names from hand or deck. You can only use each effect of a Memento and Boneback once per turn. This card is pretty bad. I get the idea of this card. You know, they're trying to stop your opponent from interacting with your stuff, but this card is not very good. We have Memento Mictlan. If your memento monster battles, your opponent cannot activate any spell and traps until the end of the damage step. If a monster you control is destroyed by battle or card effect, target one of those, special summon a memento monster with a lower level from hand or grave. You can only use this effect once per turn. Once per turn during the end phase, you can set a memento spell and trap in your grave. Compared with other field spells, you know, this card is very, very mediocre. Like if they gave this deck the Vaalmonica field spell treatment and they gave it a field spell that added on activation, okay, you know, we would have more consistency for it, you know. You can send a trap with the goblin if you don't need extra monster names. That is true. You can send traps with the goblin and then reset it with the thing. Let's check out the traps real quick. While you control a memento monster, your opponent monsters that can attack must attack the memento monster you control with the highest attack. When your opponent activates a monster effect on the field, you can target a memento combined creation you control. It loses exactly 1,000. And if it does negate that activated effect, you can only activate this effect of Cranium Burst once per chain. This basically turns your combined creation into an Omega Appaloosa, right? Which is not terrible, but also at the same time, you know, Appaloosa is a card that you could make in other decks if you just wanted something like this. The thing is, let me read the last trap card first. Fracture Dance. If you control a memento monster, target a card on the field, destroy it. Then, if you control combined creation, you can destroy one more card on the field. Okay, it destroys 2 if you have the big thing, which is good. When an attack is declared involving your memento monster and an opponent's monster, you can banish this card from your grave. All monsters your opponent currently control lose 1,000 attack until the end of this turn. You can only use each effect of Fracture Dance once per turn. Basically, outside of the Tri-Horned Dragon and the Boneback, right? These two aside, I think all of these cards are, or this one maybe, the field spell's also not great, but like in general, they have solid cards, right? They have solid cards. The only thing I don't like, there's 2 things I don't like about this deck, which overall make me also not really consider it as a top tier threat, is that I don't like the goal of the deck pretty much, right? I don't like the goal of the deck because I think it's a very contradictory thing that's going on here, because on the one hand, you have a couple of tools in here. Like, your boss monster is a 5k, 5k, right? And you have a couple of tools in here that make it seem like you would want to go second and try to OTK your opponent, right? Like, for example, you have this thing which gives your big memento piercing damage, right? For example. But your big thing, even with all the piercing in the world, is not going to be good enough, big enough to attack your opponent for a game. Like, if you go second here, let me quickly make sure that I'm not missing something that I maybe read but forgot. Like, you're not going to... It can attack every monster, but that is very dependent on your opponent, right? It's very dependent on your opponent having multiple monsters on the board. So, in a way, what I'm trying to get to, let me rephrase it. What I'm trying to get to is, in a way, this deck is trying to go second and OTK your opponent. But I think the tools that you have for blinding second and OTKing your opponent are not even close to what you would need to make it a consistent strategy, right? There's like other decks out there in Yu-Gi-Oh! That already do that way, way better. And like, it's just awkward to play it as a deck that blinds second. On the other hand, you have a lot of things in here that incentivize you not to go second, because we have trap cards in this deck that are like mostly like you're meant to use these as trap cards. Like Mikanko also has trap cards, for example, but Mikanko has in-engine ways to pitch them to the graveyard, and they're meant to be in your graveyard very often. In this deck, yeah, you can send them to the graveyard with the Goblin, but like your main point with these cards is to actually have them on the board, right? Which means if you're playing for a trap card to be on your field, you did not kill your opponent, right? The same is true for Mace. I would argue the best quote-unquote interactive piece in this deck is the Mace, the card that takes your opponent's card and takes control of it, right? That is a key piece that would be cool to have in a deck, but it only works when you go first, because it's only during your opponent's main phase, right? So it's something, it incentivizes you to go first and pass over to your opponent with some setup, right? But the setup that you make is nowhere near good enough, right? You make a, what, Combined Creation, Cranium Burst, Pass? Right? Combined Creation, Cranium Burst, Pass is like fine, but it's not gonna be good enough, is it? Right? Solid Texture, thank you for the 6 months. Anti-Sin, thank you for the tier 1 sub. It's me, Terrador, thank you for the Prime. And G-Suge, thank you for the Prime as well. Appreciate the support, everybody. Thank you, very kind of you. Probably go second and hope for non-engine to carry. That is, in case you really want to try Memento, the only way I see this deck being viable would be to blind second and try to OTK your opponent. Now, is it going to be the best deck to do that? No. But it can do it. It can do that. My problem is that you have to go second, and if your opponent only has one monster, you basically can't kill them. Isn't that ironic? If your opponent has one monster on the board, you can't kill them. Because the only thing that makes you kill them is this thing being able to attack all of their monsters. So if your opponent only has one monster, you cannot kill them, which, if you think that through, it also means you cannot play some of the best board breakers for going second. Like, if your opponent ends up making like a board of 2 monsters, you can't Lava Golem them, for example. You can't Raigeki them, you can't Darkhold them, you can't, even Tactics Take might not be good. those kind of things, right? It's like Droplet is the one good thing you get. Droplet is fine, but you get what I'm saying, right? Phantom Nightmare makes them way better. Well, that could be true. Let me see. Just out of interest, it doesn't matter for Bologna, but there's a Memento Attic Ghost. If this card is normal or special, target a Memento card in your grave, add it to your hand. If this card is sent to the grave by a Memento monster effect, you can spare summon this card. Okay, that's good. That's a good card. I'll give you that. It's a good card in the context of these cards. Yeah, it's good. But as of now, like, I don't know what they want us to do with this. Like, do they want me to set up a board going first? Because this is not good enough going first. Do they want me to go second and OTK? Because it's not good enough to do that either. So it's very conflicting, I think. But maybe that was the goal, right? Maybe the goal was to make a blind second deck that if your opponent makes you go first, you at least have something going on. Maybe that's the idea, which is technically not a terrible design philosophy, you know, making us go second deck that has something for going first, right? But still, if your deck isn't good enough at going first and not good enough at going second, it's not going to be good enough overall, right? But maybe because it's like legacy support for these kind of old school cards, maybe it's not meant to be top tier. Maybe it's just meant to be a very rogue-ish strategy with some nostalgic touch to it. Maybe that's the idea, right? In which case, you know, fine. Fine, I guess. Not the end of the world that they made this deck. I mean, I don't hate it. You know, I don't hate the fact that they made this. I just don't think it's super meta relevant. I can live with it that way, though. Like, it's fine. Zoen Pansenflip, thank you for the prime. Appreciate it, dude. Thank you. It was meant to be bad. Not bad. Not bad. It's for fun, like Nouvelle. I guess. Yeah. Another thing that I don't like is how I think out of all of these Memento monsters, only Darkblade and Witch even do anything. Right? Only Darkblade and Witch do anything. I guess with Attic Ghost, Tatsuno is also a one-card combo. Maybe? Is it? You go Tatsuno, send Attic Ghost, and Anguish? And then you add back Anguish. You normal summon Anguish, search, but then you can't normal summon anymore. Anguish reborns itself? No, it doesn't. Attic. Yeah, Attic. So you go Tatsuno, summon special, send this, and what? You sent Attic Ghost and what? And the 2 level 1s? Okay, and then Attic Ghost adds back one of the level 1s, but you go Goblin and just Foolish 2, and then you have Attic Ghost, Tatsuno, the 2 level 1s, and that gets there. That does get there. But yeah, it's fine. It's fine. That is somewhere down the line, anyways. That is somewhere down the line, anyways. That's fine. Just to get this to a close. I think Memento. I have no issues with this deck. I just don't think it's that great. So unfortunately, upon reading these cards another time and theorizing about them a little bit more, I think people are right. I think the only really exciting thing, or somewhat exciting thing about Valiant Smashers at the moment is Centurion. I think both Vaalmonica and Memento have interesting cards, have unique playstyles. So I don't hate that they exist, but they need more support in the future, right? Like both of those decks are not playable right now, especially not on their own. You know, there might be some combination potential for some of them, for some of the decks, but like for now, I would say they are just rogue decks that are not going to be great for a while until they receive more support, which historically that has happened a good amount with these side set archetypes. You know, think of Pearly support, Rescue Ace support, all that kind of stuff. You name it. There's a lot of other examples. It's possible that they just make good support for these archetypes and that they still get good. The hope is not completely lost, right? Like the cards have, I would say both of the archetypes have a somewhat solid baseline. I think Memento more so than Vaalmonica, but both theoretically with the right support, if they want them to be good, they could be good. But the only archetype out of Valiant Smashers that is already playable at a competitive level, I would say, is Centurion. The other two are not as good, which is funny because I think Centurion has less cards than both of those archetypes. I'm pretty sure Centurion only has like how many cards? 9. It's only 9 cards, which is less than the other two. Like Memento has 12, Vaalmonica has 10. So Centurion has the least amount of cards and is still the best archetype out of Valiant Smashers by far. So that's funny. But yeah, okay. That is Valiant Smashers done, I think. Valiant Smashers in the book. Honestly, I expected this to be a little bit more exciting. I'm a little bit disappointed right now. Just a little bit. Quality over quantity. I mean, that is true. That is true, man. That is something you should tell the Konami TCG department when they make TCG exclusive archetypes, man, because they give us like waves of 14 cards. Waves of 14 cards and the decks are still ass, whereas Centurion gets 11 cards total and is already meta relevant, you know? Like we have 14 Tistina cards and literally the deck is not playable in the slightest. Meta needs a shakeup. I mean, are we at the point already? Are we at the point already, chat, where the meta needs a shakeup? I mean, I feel like we got a ban list somewhat recently. How long has it been? A month? 1.5? How long has the ban list been? I forgot. 2 months? It didn't feel that long. Only one big event in EU. Maybe that's why it doesn't feel as long to me. Because it was it was exactly before YCS Dortmund, right? It was exactly before YCS Dortmund, which Dortmund was when? End of September? I forgot when Dortmund even happened, dude. It's been so long at this point. It's been a long time without events. I guess. Yeah. I guess it could be time for a ban list at some point, but it felt okay. The only reason why it felt okay was like there is no one deck that's dominating everything, which always makes formats feel like they can last longer than like tier 0 formats or whatever. Like tier 0 formats, if like the same deck wins event after event after event. It's just less exciting from a format development perspective than when, like, a format like right now, we had, like, you know, Rika wins Dortmund, Unchained wins a YCS, then Rescue Ace wins a YCS. Okay, Unchained won another YCS, but it's also just I feel like the next ban list is going to be one of the more interesting ones, and also one of the more controversial ones, because the I think there's a big split in the community about the format the way it is right now. I don't want to restart the entire discussion of is a diverse format good or not, but I think one thing we can agree on is that it's hard to make a ban list in a very diverse format, because what do you even do, right? What do you do in this format? You either have to, I feel like you either have to hit all the decks or none of them, because if you hit just Pearly or just Rescue Ace or just Unchained, the other ones are just going to be even better than before. Or, like, you know, in order to have a real shakeup of the format, you'd have to like either bring something crazy back off of the ban list, which could shake something up, or they would have to, like, hit a lot of stuff for a lot of decks. Because if they just hit Rescue Ace, for example, we're just going to play the same format as right now, just minus Rescue Ace, right? You're still going to play, if they just hit Rescue Ace, we're still going to play Unchained, Pearly, and all the other stuff just like before, just minus Rescue Ace, right? And so if they don't want that to happen, they have to hit Rescue Ace, Unchained, Pearly, Tier, what have you, you know? Just also ban Calamity. I would be so down for a Calamity ban. I'm unfortunately not sure if it's gonna happen, because I feel like Calamity is the only thing that makes Centurion viable right now, and Centurion is already the only, I feel like, pretty much the only selling point of Valiant Smashers. So banning Calamity right now, as much as I agree with you, it should be banned, from a business perspective, doesn't seem great. Does not seem great. So, I don't know. Shamalama, thank you for the 4 months. Now, banning Isold, I could get behind. But this is not supposed to be a banless discussion. It is something that I haven't done in a while, I feel like. So maybe we do one at some point this month. Maybe after Bologna. Maybe that's late. I don't know exactly when to expect one, to be honest. It's hard to pinpoint when exactly I would expect a ban list, because, you know, it's like there's not much going on that needs to be addressed in terms of balance. Well, yeah. One thing I'll probably do before, I was thinking of doing that tomorrow, is we have not done a tier list in a while. Now, the only downside of doing tier list for, like, the format tomorrow would be that it would actually be a tier list Tuesday, which I don't know if we can let that happen, but I'll think about it. The Millers might be banned eventually. That is something that I hope they do. For sure. I want them to ban Kelbeck and Agido. I'm fine with one of each shuffler, honestly. Like, honestly, I don't know if I'm the same, if people agree with me on that, but I felt like the Ishizu shufflers at 1, I've been so much less annoyed by. I've been so much less annoyed by the shufflers, because it also feels like when the Millers were limited, it also meant that they would get to the shufflers way less often, right? So it's like so fine to have one of each shuffler in the game. Nah, the shufflers need to be banned. I'm an Orcus player. Yeah, there was no bias at all in that statement. Yeah, you have a point. Do you think a new master rule will come anytime soon? No, I mean, I don't really have. Do we have any reason to think that one is coming? I feel like I am not super. How do you say? Super experienced with how this usually works, because I've never paid much attention to when and how they introduce new master rules, but I'm under the impression that they used to always do this with a new anime. They would update the master rules. And I think last time that just didn't happen, right? Because last time it was Rush Duel. Instead of introducing a new master rule, they just introduced a new game, right? Which was Rush Duel. So I believe that means we are not getting a Master Duel revision. But I honestly think that might be good that way. Like from what I've heard, last time they did a Master Rule, like a big Master Rule revision, was when they introduced the the extra monster zone, the link monster, with link monsters, where you could only summon in the extra monster zone all of your extra deck stuff, and I think that was not very well received overall, especially in Japan. We just got the new illusion type, but no master rule this time. Yeah. I don't expect one anytime soon. I don't expect one anytime soon. Master Rule 4 was not liked all that much. I feel like I was in the minority because back then I appreciated the shakeup and the attempt at slowing down the game. I appreciated it. I don't know if it was the best way they could have done it, but judging from the reception of the community, people really didn't like it. So I think it's good that they went back on it, right? Because only because I liked it doesn't mean it was good for the game, right? Like if it was actually hurting the number of players, then even though I liked it, I feel like they should gone back on it, right? Sometimes you have to basically distinguish between what you like and what is good for the game as a whole. I still think they should be looking at ways to make the game slower at some point. But I think it's something that needs to be done more organically through card design rather than enforcing new different rules on people, right? Because it's simple. If they want to make the game slower because the game is like too much is happening, they just have to make cards with like restrictions accordingly, right? They just have to make the game. You can make the game naturally slower by just making good slow decks. Easy as that. It's not that I don't think it's that hard. If they really wanted to, they could probably sit down and make a good controlled archetype. I do wonder how Master Rule 4 would be like right now. Honestly, how would Master Rule 4 be like right now? I mean, there would be a lot of decks that would be straight up unplayable because they were not designed with Master Rule 4 in mind. Right? Hurley would probably be good under Master Rule 4. Labyrinth would be pretty sick. But certain other decks would just not work, right? Rescue Ace would work. I guess. Vanquish Soul Supremacy, true. Memento may be good then, yeah, true. True. I don't know. Okay. Let's move on into something that I have been postponing for... It's been out for 2 weeks. It's been out for 2 weeks, and that is the 2011 Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG recap. So now is the boomer moment of joy. We're gonna watch the Law YGO 2011 Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG recap. I've been loving the Law YGO videos, and I'm also gonna link it and pin it in chat when we're watching it. Let me quickly boot it up and link it in chat, and some mods pin it. I'll just pin it myself. That's easier. There you go. The video is pinned. This is a series. In case you haven't been here when we watched the previous parts, I highly encourage you to check it out if you have any interest in how the game used to be, or if you just want to, you know, have some nice memories of old times, or if you're just like interested in the past of this game and how we used to play this game. I always feel very nostalgic when we watch these because I've been around for so long and I've played all these formats, and remembering is just very, very nice. But this is a 1 hour video, so I'm going to speed it up a little bit, just a little bit. And I just want to take the time to do it. We haven't been able to do it on stream because it's like I said, it's a long video, and I usually only watch videos when I'm eating my food. So I never usually have the time. So we're gonna do it today. You guys let me know how the volume is.
Entering 2011, the 5Ds era was nearing its peak. Hidden Arsenal 3 at the end of the previous year introduced many new tools to the format, none of which have had an opportunity to shine as of yet, with no event at the end of 2010 to showcase them. In the meantime, 2011 would begin rather slowly at first.
Also, I believe since we did the Valiant Smashers stuff relatively quickly, we're gonna have time to play some Master Duel after. So if you were here for Master Duel, we're still gonna do that later.
Receiving a Shonen Jump promo.
We watched the first 8 minutes. Yeah, I know, but then the stream crashed because they didn't want me to know about 6 Samurais. So we're just gonna start over because I don't remember where exactly we stopped.
To start the year off with the legalization printing of the Winged Dragon of Ra, holding a similar significance to Obelisk the year before, but seeing far less play due to both being more restrictive in its summoning and less overall good with its effect. With that said, the first set of the year would hit at the end of January, being Duelist Pack Yusei 3 on January 25th, but it brought absolutely nothing new to the table that would change the meta around it, with its primary contributions being reprints of Effect Veiler, Drill Warrior, Cards of Consonance, and Starlight Road, with the Veiler reprint really being the only draw to the set. With that said, the first core set of the year was around the corner
was
from
2011.
Here,
well, yeah, they remade the first iteration of the Egyptian god cards were not legal to play with, and then they made playable versions of them in like 2010, 2011.
Be a far more fitting start to a pivotal year in the development of Yu-Gi-Oh into the next era, bringing decks that were far cries from what came
like
before.
Playable. Oh god, dude, I hate 6 Samurai.
Storm of Ragnarok. Release date February 8th, 2011.
6 Samurai was so
Major strategies,
Resident Sleeper,
6
man.
Samurai,
Oh
Tower
god,
Curve,
Maxi
Impact,
again. Oh my
speeding
god,
up the game to new
I
heights.
remember we got jump scared by the Maxi when we watched it the first time. Good god.
Storm of Ragnarok would be the set to throw caution to the wind in terms of the speed of the game, as its inclusions would not only shatter the prior speed barrier, but also put in place a pseudo failsafe that would become increasingly problematic the further into the future we move. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Starting with its cover archetype, the Nordic Aesir archetypes are not only their own separate intertwined archetypes, but the Nordic archetype itself is split into 3 subcategories, one for each of the Aesir boss monsters they summon, being entirely based on Norse mythology. These would be Loki's Nordic
I can now act like I knew this all along, when in reality, the only reason I actually know this is because we've watched like the first 5 minutes of this video already like 2 weeks ago. But I had no idea that each individual of the freaking Nordic lords has a subcategory of cards.
Alfars, with
This
none
one is
being
pre-watched,
remotely
actually.
good.
Yeah, the
Thor's
first 5
Nordic
minutes
Beast
are
bringing-
pre-watched.
I am not pronouncing that. Who summons 2
And
Nordic
I'm
Beast
making
tokens
full
on battle
use of that.
destruction. Gold Fox, a tuner that can special summon itself if the opponent controls a synchro while you control no monsters. And are you kidding me? Who can special summon himself from hand if your monster is destroyed in battle, and can special summon a Nordic beast from deck by changing it from defense to attack mode. And Odin's Nordic Ascendants, who include Mimir, who can special summon itself from grave in the standby phase if you control a Nordic by discarding a spell, Valkyrie, who can banish 2 cards from hand on normal summon to summon 2 Einjar tokens, and Venatus, a TCG exclusive that can consider itself any of the sub-archetypes for synchro summons, and can dump a Nordic from deck to grave to copy its level. Nordics at the time were almost completely overlooked due to another powerhouse deck being in the same set, and even then the strategy was so disjointed that it would see very little play, although it would see a small amount of success with a single YCS.
Maybe this would have been playable if they just left off the whole subtype thingy. Like, if just all the Nordic tuners could have summoned all of the synchro monsters, maybe. Like, if they all were one archetype. The fact that they split the one archetype that was already mediocre into 3 subtypes, yeah. Nordics have more tops than Adamancipator. Well, Adamancipator came out during a freaking pandemic, so that's not a fair comparison.
top later this year. Karakuri would receive another wave of support to help round out the deck into a powerful strategy with Watchdog, who boosts all Karakuris when you take battle damage involving this card. Ninja, who revives a Karakuri on destroying a monster in battle.
Karakuri, on the other
Muso,
hand, is
TCG
based as
exclusive
hell.
swaps
That
the
deck was
defense at
so
the end of
cool,
the battle
man.
phase if it attacks, having 2100 attack.
That deck was
Burrito,
so cool.
A level 8 machine-locked synchro that summons a Karakuri from deck on summon and draws a card the first time each turn a Karakuri monster changes battle position. And Cash, which searches a Karakuri from deck to hand by changing the battle position of a Karakuri on field. Karakuri, thanks mostly to Burrito here, would continue to grow into a powerful Synchro Spam and Advantage Generation archetype, but would continue to see no play for now as it was still exceedingly difficult to get a play line started for the deck without some kind of swarming tool. However, both of these archetypes would pale in comparison to Six Samurai, the next legacy archetype to get a massive overhaul, whose support here would completely warp the meta around it for the following month. These releases include Kizan, who could special summon itself from hand if you control a Six Samurai, boosting to 2100 if you had 2 others, Inishi, who could banish 2 Six Samurai from grave to bounce a monster to hand, boosting to 2200 if you have 2 other Six Samurai, now, Kaigeki, who summons a Six...
Don't get me wrong, the Six Samurai cards, some of them are really, really cool. Like, Grandmaster of the Six Samurai, dude, is one of the, like, most iconic Yu-Gi-Oh cards to me from that era, like in general. Like I love Grandmaster of the Six Samurai, like the artwork and all that stuff. Like the Six Samurai cards are pretty damn cool. There's just literally I think 2 cards in the deck that ruined the entire thing for me. That is Gateway and that is Shien. The synchro was, it's just they gave them the one of the cringest synchro boss monsters out there, which was an Omni Negate, pretty much. I mean, Spell Trap Omni Negate, right? Which back in the day, I don't think it was the first one, but it was very, very rare. That was not usually what decks were based around, like stopping your opponent from playing by negating their shit. That's like it's like a very 2011, 2012 kind of thing that starts happening with like Shien, Infernity Barrier, those kind of things, right? It's kind of like this era where this stuff starts happening more often, right? And Shien, I just really didn't enjoy the playstyle, dude, of like opening a combo, basically going minus as well, to do that kind of stuff, right? I didn't love that, right? Like Shien was basically this deck's version of Baron de Fleur today, right? And then they would play like back row to complement it, right? Like we have, this is also the year where like, you know, Solemn Warning is already out. Solemn Judgment is still around, you know, that kind of stuff. And then just like Six Samurai would just go first and not let you play the game, right? And if they had Gateway, it was even worse because they would never run out of cards. And if they had Six Samurai United on top, they would also just refill their hands. So like I don't have an issue with most of the Six Samurai cards. I actually think most of them are really cool. It's just a shame that the goal of the deck was Shien, you know, and then Gateway was also cringe.
Samurai from hand on normal summon, boosting to 1700 if you control
Weren't
another.
Infinities out by this point?
A duo that can special summon if you control
I
the
don't
other.
remember.
I
think so, yeah. Infinities out.
Six Samurai of
Infinity is
Kagemusha,
2010.
a level 2 Six Samurai tuner, and Shien, a level 5 Six Samurai locked synchro that could negate a spell or trap once per turn and could protect itself from destruction by popping a different Six Samurai instead. They also received Sheen Smoke Signal, which could search for a level 3 or lower Six Samurai, Ascentism, who could special summon a Six Samurai from deck with the same attack value but a different name than one you control, and Musakai Magatama, a counter trap for anything that destroys cards while you control a Six Samurai. Six Samurai would be insanely powerful from this release thanks to their ability to swarm the board insanely fast, which was exacerbated by the previously released TCG exclusive Gateway of the Six, which meant you could effectively vomit the entire deck on the field in a single turn thanks to Kizan and Grandmaster giving you effectively infinite counters for it, turning Six Samurai into an absolute menace going into the next YCS. Moving into the one-offs, Doppel Warrior was a level 2 warrior that could special summon itself from hand if you revive a monster, summoning 2 level 1 400 attack tokens if used for a synchro summon. This would be an interesting card for synchro strategies, specifically thanks to its interactions with Junk Synchron, who could synchro summon using Doppel to make Junk Warrior, whose attack gain effect would trigger prior to Doppel Warrior's token summon, meaning that the summon would happen before the attack gain, making your Junk Warrior 3100 attack and providing 2 level 1 tokens for continued lines. Divine Wind of the Mist Valley was a field spell that could special summon a wind monster from deck when a wind monster is returned to hand once per turn, which while not popular now, it would grow in popularity as a combo enabler with a couple of releases later in this year. Forbidden Lance could, by dropping a monster's attack by 800, make it immune to spells and traps for the rest of the turn, being both great for protection and
Lance is one of those cards that changed Yu-Gi-Oh for like a while after, for like a couple formats. I mean, even in, it's one of those cards that just comes out and every once in a while just pops back into a format and just changes how we play the game, right? I mean, remember, like, this card was literally meta like half a year ago, right? In Kashtira. This is how powerful it is. It goes along, it literally goes next to cards like Enemy or Book of Moon that continue to see play to this day every once in a while. Like, that's how powerful Forbidden Lance is. And like, those kind of cards, when cards like this still remain relevant to this day, you can imagine how good they were back in the day.
For battle clearing thanks to being activatable in the damage step to target an opponent's monster. Hope for Escape could, by paying 1,000 life points while the opponent's life points were at least 1,000 higher than yours, draw a card for every 2,000 points difference between you and your opponent. While not played in any meta-relevant decks for the time, Hope for Escape was a tool that would be abused by many Exodia decks as we approach the event horizon of sorts. The Golden Apples could, when you take a direct attack, regain the damage you took and summon a token with equivalent stats, being an alternative to Gores in theory, but cratering on release in practice. Lastly are the TCG exclusives, including Chaos Hunter, who could special summon itself by discarding a card when the opponent special summons a monster,
My favorite mannequin cat target.
locking the opponent from banishing cards, and probably the most infamous card for the long term from this set, Max C, a hand trap that could be discarded to draw a card every time the opponent special summoned that turn.
Cat, with all your collective knowledge of the Yu-Gi-Oh market, okay? And I please only answer if you do not know the answer to the question. I want you to guess if you don't know the answer. How much do you think, because this was a secret rare and there was his only print, how much do you think Maxi was worth at release? With all you know about the TCG market and everything, this secret rare from Storm of Ragnarok, how much do you think this card was worth when it was released? This card, I don't actually know the exact number. It probably fluctuated a little bit, but I want to say the 2011, I distinctly remember 2011 German Nationals I went to. That was right after Storm of Ragnarok, maybe a little bit later, like maybe some months down the line. I don't know exactly when it was. This card was like under $10, I'm pretty sure. I don't know if it was 5, maybe it was 8. I don't remember. This card, there's also no clear price because we didn't have something like, we didn't have a resource like Card Market back then. This card was under $10 because unironically, people didn't realize how good this card was. Partially because it wasn't that good yet. You know, you might say how with the knowledge from today, look, you know, in hindsight, but, and this is also one of the other one, this is so interesting about this card. When they designed this card for how the game was in 2011, Maxi was a good card, but it was not broken. It was not a staple, and it was not, especially not a main deck staple for a couple years from here. Like, there was formats where you would main deck Maxi, and there was formats where you would not main deck Maxi because it didn't do enough against all of the decks. It's kind of comparable to a card like Nibiru today, or Droll and Lockbird, where we main deck these cards in some formats, but we don't always main deck these cards because sometimes there's too many decks where the card is just not great, right? And in 2011, 2012, there was a lot of decks in the format where Maxi would pretty much always only get one draw, and it would not be good enough to main deck it because the risk of like top decking into Maxi in the middle of the game is much higher when you play like multiple turns back and forth and your opponent often only special summons once in a turn. Like, drawing Maxi mid-game just is pretty damn bad, right? And that's why, like, I actually went back at some point, I don't know why exactly, but I've like looked at some of my old decks from tops that I had back in the day, and I'm like, okay, I'm looking at Mermail tops from 2014, and I didn't main deck full 3 copies of Maxi, right? That used to be a thing, and it's something with the mind from today. You're like, how the hell did you not always main deck 3 Maxis, right? And it is just crazy to think about. It is just crazy to think about. And it just goes to show once again how cards can be completely fine at the moment of their printing, right? But then later, when the game changes, it obviously changes how certain cards interact with the game, right? And I think it's important that Konami realizes these kind of things, right? And because other very, very relevant examples that I'm thinking of right now is a card like Anti-Spell Fragrance. Anti-Spell Fragrance is a card that did not see play pretty much at all for 15 years of its existence. That card came out in like 2002 or 2003. And it's never been an issue because slowing down your opponent, forcing them to set their spell cards was never a big problem. You know, you would just, okay, I'll wait a turn. I'll wait a turn with my spell cards. Not a problem when the game takes 8 turns, 10 turns anyways. Now, the game has shifted into a faster like environment where setting cards for 1 turn, like if you have a bunch of spells in your hand, your opponent anti-spells, if you lose the game, you're dead, right? And they need to realize those kind of things. They need to realize when the game changes and old cards are not appropriate anymore. You know, there's multiple. Droll and Lockbird might be another example. You know, Maxi freaking was a completely fine card for multiple years after its release because we just used it though in a similar way to how we use Droll and Lockbird right now. You know, sometimes we would main deck it, but also very often we would simply side deck it in case we would run into a deck that would lose very hard to Maxi, right? If in case there was a super combo heavy, special summon heavy deck, which existed sometimes in the game back then, you would side in Maxi for that, just to have a little bit of an edge over it, right? That's how we used Maxi for years. Until eventually, every deck was focused on a lot of special summoning. The game was condensed in very few turns. People didn't have backup plans anymore. Up until like 2014, 2015, every single deck plays like a bunch of trap cards almost. Almost every deck, not every deck, but most decks do. And like if you get max seed, you're like, okay, guess I'll set my trap cards and play next turn. That is not something that decks do anymore these days, right? It's not something that really exists in modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Which is why I believe cards like Anti-Spell, cards like Max C should just be revisited by Konami after a while, and they should realize, okay, this card is not, this card is not really in alignment with how Yu-Gi-Oh! Is being played today. It was a fine card when it was printed, which, believe it or not, it was. It was a fine card when it was printed, but now it's not anymore. The TCG has realized this. The OCG and Master Duel haven't. Their argument is probably that Max C is, supposed to slow down the game, to which I say it doesn't really slow down the game, it just pretty much wins the game. And also it's, if you want something to slow down the game, just ban Max C and print something that's more balanced. If you actually want to slow down and balance out the game, like you can do that. You print freaking 1 billion pack fillers every single set, just print one less pack filler and print a good replacement that's more balanced than the card from 2011. Anyways, thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
While not staple in the current day due to its fluctuating relevance, Maxi would grow from here to be the end-all be-all staple of hand trap lines for years to come, being easily the most controversial hand trap in the game's history. YCS Dallas would be the first event of the year, taking place 4 days later on February 12th, and Six Samurai would clearly make a first impression on the format, taking a majority of the top cut, including first place piloted by Nizar Sahan.
Triple gateway, man. Why did they do this?
Playing a primary line of Kaigeki with Kagemusha to access Shien, then swarm from there with all of the other various pieces thanks to Gateway, notably able to access Naturia Barkion in the extra deck thanks to Kagemusha and Kizan being Earths. In addition, double-edged sword technique effectively...
Maxi? Oh, let me move over. Maxi is not even in the side deck. No, didn't need it. Didn't play it.
Read as another one-card Shien thanks to being 2 Six Samurais, able to instantly dodge the drawback of the card by synchroing off the pieces it summoned. Cypher Soldier and Puppet Plant would see a good amount of popularity off of Six Samurai's popularity, with Cypher Soldier able to attack over Shien, and Puppet Plant able to temporarily steal it, dodging all Six Samurai protections. Following Dallas, there was a less notable set release here, being the Bonds Beyond Time movie pack, which only printed the remaining Malefic monsters, all having the same condition to summon themselves by banishing their counterpart from deck or extra deck, only being able to control one Malefic at a time, destroying themselves if there's
the only Malefics, like the Malefics only ever saw play in other decks. You would never play a Malefic deck yourself. You would play them as beat sticks in decks that had field spells, like Skill Drain Beat with Necro Valley or some shit like that. You would just use them as big bodies. As a result, you would only ever play the ones that require you to not have a brick in your main deck, right? Because they all have, it's such bad balancing as well, honestly. All of the Malefics have to banish their counterpart from deck or extra deck. Like Rainbow Dragon needs to banish Rainbow Dragon from the deck. Malefic Cyber End has to banish Cyber End from the extra deck. There's a huge freaking difference whether I have to play a Rainbow Dragon in my main deck, or I have to play a Cyber End in my extra deck, where it's never gonna ruin my draws. Did they do anything to balance this out? No, they have the exact same freaking effect. They have the exact same effect and restrictions and everything. They are the same card. This one requires a main deck brick. This one doesn't. It's such bad balancing, honestly. It's mind baffling how they thought it was even worth printing Malefic Rainbow when this card is the same card but better.
Active field spell, Parallel Gear, who can synchro summon with a Malefic in hand, Paradox Dragon, a Malefic locked synchro that can revive a synchro.
The Stardust
from
had an
summon,
effect, yeah. It was just, in
no
particular, these
active,
two are just
Malefic
like,
World,
you know?
A field spell that could replace your draw for turn with an add of a random one of 3 chosen Malefic cards from deck, and Junk Gardener, who can swap an opponent's battle position once per turn. In this entire collection, the only card that would see any experimentation would be Malefic Cyber End Dragon, who would be splashed into some Gravekeeper list alongside Malefic Stardust. Following a little over a week later would be the GX Manga Volume 6 release, which brought Elemental Hero the Shining.
Oh, that's
a fusion
big.
of an Elemental Hero and a Light Monster who gains
Shining was
attack
big.
for
I mean,
each.
Hero Beat was already good. Miracle Fusion with Absolute Zero was already a thing. Shining just meant you finally had something to fuse with just aliases, because alias is a light monster, right? Hero Beat was huge, and then this. Yeah, I don't think we got this in Europe until way later.
Banished Elemental Hero, returning up to 2 banished Elemental Heroes to hand.
Oh, Shining was
break.
insane.
This card would instantly be slotted into the previous Hero Beat lists, as it could be made with alias and either any hero or any light monster like Honest with Miracle Fusion, giving a powerhouse that also cycled your most important piece. On the same day as Shining's release, a new ban list would go into effect March 1st,
Honest too,
bringing
yeah.
a wave of necessary
Thunder
changes
King.
following Storm of Ragnarok's release. Newly banned were Goyo Guardian, Cold Wave, and Mass Driver, with Goyo being the best generic
We've
level
talked
6
about
synchro,
this. We've talked about this last time. I'm pretty sure we've watched until this point before the stream crashed a second time. Goyo Guardian is one of the saddest stories of old school synchros you will ever hear. Like, there's 2 cards I am particularly mad that they got in errata, and that is Goyo Guardian and Brain Control. Both of those cards are the prime example of why I'm not a huge fan of giving cards erratas just to bring them back. Because Goyo Guardian now needs an Earth Tuner. And I'm gonna be honest with you, Goyo Guardian, if anything, would have needed a buff when they brought it back. If anything, if they wanted to errata Goyo Guardian after bringing it back, they should have made it freaking stronger rather than weaker. Right? Like, they should have made this card, they should have given it like something else. Like, this card would have been unplayable even with its old effect when they brought it back. I don't understand why they brought it back. And you might say like, oh, why does it matter? Even if it came back with its old effect, it wouldn't have been relevant. It would have been relevant for something like, for example, when you could theoretically play Edison format in Master Duel. The problem is that cards like Brain Control and Goyo Guardian, which are very key parts of Edison format, they don't work as they used to back in the day when you're playing Edison format. So if you want to play Edison on Master Duel, which you technically can with friends, right? You can't go into ranked with it, but you could play with friends. You could make the cards and play. But the cards just don't work the same way anymore. Future Fusion is the same thing, right? Okay, well, Future Fusion would be a busted card if it had the old effect still, you know? That's a needed change if they wanted to bring it back, right? But I don't know, man. That just makes me sad, right? That's the only thing. That's the only thing that makes me sad about it, is like, I can't, even if I wanted to, because I thought about doing that for like YouTube videos or whatever, just like play old formats in Master Duel and see if it's fun. But you can't do that with some very important cards in these formats having erratas, right?
Being abusive.
There's still no prio. Yeah, there's no prio, but still, you know.
Game-ending pushes, and Mass Driver being an FTK enabler, all of which were warranted. Newly limited were Kalute, Dandelion, Honest, Book of Moon, and Gateway of the Six, with most of those being necessary for some time, and Gateway being absolutely critical to prevent Six Samurai from completely taking over.
Could have been banned, honestly.
Newly semi-limited were Arc Lord Christia, Card Trooper, Debris Dragon, Spirit Reaper, Megamorph, Overload Fusion, Royal Tribute, Icarus Attack, and Solemn Warning, with most being understandable and Megamorph being a plain flat-out head-scratcher. Lastly, unlimited here were Chaos Sorcerer, Demise, Duloran, Snipe Hunter, Gold Sark, Skill Drain, and Ultimate Offering, with most of these being cleanup, but some being baffling, like Duloran, who had just been semi-limited for its OTK interactions, now being back at its full 3. With the new list in effect, eyes turn to the next...
Yeah, Duloran was always weird, because I believe the original reason to semi-limit Duloran was because there were some loops, brother, with Symbol of Heritage, right? Symbol of Heritage was one of the reasons why they wanted 2 Dulorans. But then they just brought it back anyways, but Symbol of Heritage was still there, right?
Semi-limited for its OTK interactions, now being back at its full 3. With the new list in effect, eyes turn to the next structure deck at the end of March to see if Six Samurai could hold its new top position, or if the new strategy could give it competition in Six Sam's newly weakened state.
Ooh, Dragoonides. That was a good deck.
Dragoonity Legion. Release date, March 8th, 2011. Set type, structure deck. Major strategies, Dragoonity. Impact, dragons rising into the meta. Dragoonity Legion was, effectively, the last couple of pieces of the Dragoonity strategy needed to make the deck anything near viable, adding in a couple of cards that would not only make Dragoonity a viable meta option, but would also put dragon strategies on the map for the
structure deck. It was a crime that it didn't reprint Phalanx. Oh, right. Some of the cards for Dragoonity, I don't think in 2011, but in like Dragon Ruler format, there was a Dragoonity version of the deck. And that was really, really expensive because some of them had not been reprinted in the structure deck. Like, I remember Vajrayana, the level 6 Synchro, being like a 20 or 30 bucks card during Dragon Ruler times because it had never been reprinted, as for example.
The new cards brought here included Arma Leviathan, the boss of the structure, able to summon itself from hand by banishing a Dragoonity equipped with another Dragoonity, equipping one to itself on summon from grave, Eccles, able to special summon a Dragoonity from hand and equip itself to it on summon, able to pop a card on field if sent to grave while equipped,
was also expensive,
and most important of all, Dragon Ravine. Ravine had 2 effects it could use by discarding a card once per turn, being either searching a level 4 lower Dragoonity from deck or dumping a dragon from deck to grave.
Bro, I miss Ravine Ruler, man. Ravine Ruler is such a based format, dude. Full Power Ruler is also cool, but Ravine Ruler is so sick, man.
Dragon deck both now and in the future, as it was effectively a once per turn Foolish Burial for dragons. Reprints here would include
may be
Dux,
one of my favorite
Legionnaire,
formats of all time.
Falcon,
Ravine
Foolish
Ruler.
Burial, Card Destruction, Mirror Force, Bottomless, and Icarus Attack. YCS Charlotte would take place 2 weeks later on March 19th, and with it, some major shifts had clearly taken hold from the recent releases and ban lists. Makina Karakuri would be an interesting one-off in the top cut here, being a combination of the various Karakuri pieces to enable synchro summons, specifically with Strategists, to combine with level 4 machines to access Bure, and the first top cut appearance of Instant Fusion as a synchro.
This deck, I believe, won German Nationals in 2011. I don't know if it was exactly this list, but this deck won German Nationals. The Karakuri, they named it Karakuri Machina Plant, I think. Yeah, that won German Nationals 2011.
Extender, being used to summon Cybersaurus as a machine to extend into Burrito, in addition to the Machina pieces and a small E-Tele package. Empty Jar would see a top spot here, being a deck primarily focused on quickly finding morphing jars with cards like Deep Diver and Gold Sarcophagus,
I remember this.
Then repeatedly triggering his flip effect with cards like AD Changer, Book of Eclipse, Moon, and Taiyu, enabling the card to quickly rip the opponent's deck apart 5 cards at a time. Dragoonity would see its first success here with 2 top spots, using Dux and Phalanx to quickly climb into Vajrayana, and from there until a level 8 Synchro. It was also the first big deck to take advantage of cards. Well,
you see, once again, there's no, even this deck, it would special summon a bunch of times ideally, right? But you still didn't really play Max C, because if you look at the structure of how decks are built during this time, you have a batch of monsters, a batch of spell cards, and then almost all of these decks have 10 or more trap cards. So if you Max C this deck, they will simply like set 2, set 3, pass. So yes, you slow them down, but it is not nearly the impact that the card has nowadays, right? Because decks simply don't play trap cards anymore, outside of like the one searchable trap that some decks play, right? That is the core thing. Like no deck has a plan for when I don't get to play the game, right?
As putting Phalanx and Eccles into the grave was ideal, and getting 2 cards to do that made perfect sense. Hero Beat would see a
Imperm,
massive
yeah.
resurgence into the meta here thanks to the new fusion of the Shining, who gave a power play off of Miracle Fusion that also kept the engine rolling by recurring pieces back to hand when it left the field. Also moving some players to include Snowman Eater into lists to provide access to absolute
Interesting
zero.
that it only
Six
has one
Samurai had made an
miracle.
adjustment following the limit of Gateway, but was still clearly potent at making a board of Shein and friends quickly and reliably, using United as a way to generate counters for Gateway without extra copies of Gateway. However, all of these decks were not ready for another OTK deck appearing into the meta and taking the event, piloted by Nikki Nikale, being Fish OTK, a deck that aimed to quickly bring out
This is one of my favorite decks of all time, dude. I love this deck, man. God damn, I love Fish OTK. I played that deck throughout all of 2011, man. Oh god, I'm pretty sure that was my favorite deck of that year. I played that deck so much, dude. That deck is so sick. So basically, the way this deck works is you try to resolve Coelacanth by like you would like Gold Sarcophagus for it, and or like, you would either Gold Sarcophagus for a Coelacanth or Gold Sarcophagus for Trunate, depending on what you're missing. And then 2 turns later, you like standby phase, bring back Treeborn, enemy, take your opponent's monster, tribute for Coelacanth, go ham. You have some synchro combos you can do. You can go Colossal Armory Arm to kill them. It is such a cool deck, man.
Super Ancient Deep Sea King Sakila
I
to
love
flood the
this
board
deck.
with fish monsters to synchro
Oh,
with.
man.
Specifically in Fishborg Blaster, who's made their second OTK deck appearance, and Oystermeister, who summons a level 1 token with Sent to
Oystermeister.
Grave. Because of this, you could synchro its token with Fishborg Blaster to make Formula Synchron.
This deck
which in
seems to
turn
have a
gave you
lot of your
draws to fuel
favorite
more
cards too. Yeah, funny, right? Ironic how this deck has like some of my favorite cards of all time, like Light and Darkness Dragon, Swap Frog, Ronin Toadin, Enemy Controller, Coelacanth. A lot of the stuff that this is why some of these cards are my favorite cards, or like some of my favorite cards. Yeah, it's because of this deck.
plays, eventually leading to a combination of Bryonic with other synchros to bounce a board away and swing for game. While not as uninteractive as Frog FTK the year prior, Fish OTK would be a bit of a detested deck in the metagame, which would
It was the thing is just based off the nature that it needed turns to set up, and like a large amount of turns at that. Sometimes I don't think it was degenerate or anything. It was like fine. It was fun though. It was very fun.
sadly never take another top spot.
There were
again in
some
its current
fish decks in
iteration, falling
RBET
out of favor
rulers this
directly
weekend. I
after
might
this
take a
event.
look at that. at some
YCS
point.
Anaheim would take place 2 weeks later, and we'd see a bit of resettling of the format around the new big names, with the primary threats now standing out as Gravekeeper, Six Samurai, and Hero Beat, with Hero Beat taking the event piloted by Angel Flores for his second YCS title. There were 2 tech choices here that popped up a couple of times prior to this, but should be mentioned at least once. Those
Do
being
you agree
Duradark,
with
able to
Moray of
remove
Greed?
Dark
Yeah,
Maw
Moray of Greed was mandatory in the deck for sure. Yeah.
monsters in exchange for its attack.
You needed
turn,
that for
specifically
consistency.
being used
You
to
also had a
out-Shien,
bunch of
and Dragon Knight
waters
Draco
that you
Quest,
didn't want to
who
draw.
could be made using Super Poly on an opponent's board to remove either a Synchro Dragon monster.
This is
or
just
a
an
warrior.
Edison deck?
YCS
Yeah, this
Paris
is
would take
just an
place a
Edison
week
deck.
later, and for the most part,
I mean, 2011 for large portions of it is not that different from Edison format. It's just that a couple of decks, you definitely see the tendency of going towards combo heavier decks between Edison and this format, right? Like you definitely see a couple of strategies that are more combo focused than during Edison format, like and like more like bigger boards earlier on, right? But it still is, I think, a format that is relatively close to Edison, right? But you have a lot of cards that, a lot of decks that do a little bit more in a turn than you could during Edison format, right? Like Six Samurai, X Saber, Infernity, the Karakuri Brews. There's some more explosive stuff going on in the year for sure.
see similar
But it's
trends
still
to other
good.
events, with Stevens Louise taking the event with X Saber, using Super Nimble Mega Hamster as an additional way to access Dark Soul. This would be the last event before the next couple of set releases, which would move to completely revolutionize the meta with the end of the era just around the corner.
Ooh, Fabled Unicorn. What is that? Hidden Arsenal? Oh,
Hidden Arsenal
God.
4, Trishula's Triumph. Release date, April 19th, 2011. Set type, deck building set. Major strategies, dual terminal wave 4. Impact, 1 synchro to rule them all. Hidden
Oh,
Arsenal
yeah.
4, similar to the last 3 iterations,
Oh,
would
yes.
aim to provide the legalization printings of the last wave of dual terminal exclusive cards for the first generation of the dual terminal lore, being the last wave until Hidden Arsenal would shift to the next generation. Starting with what received irrelevant support, Dragoonity would receive nothing of note here, being a failed follow-up to its prior structure deck. Neo
Well, Kurseska was good eventually, but not for Dragoonity.
Flamvel would be an offshoot to the prior Flamvel archetype, aimed at keeping the opponent's grave clear of monsters, which saw zero play and was extremely poorly timed with Necro Valley being a common sight in the meta. Jurak would once again see no relevant cards released here, although one piece, Aolo, would see play in later eras purely for being a level 1 dinosaur tuner, which would be relevant around 20...
Oh, but Kurseska did too. Why are we ignoring my boy Kurseska? Kurseska was your go-to level 1 dragon tuner for dragon rulers for like 2 years.
17. Naturia would see a couple of new odd pieces in
Stink
Stink
Bug.
Bug, able to send itself to grave when a Naturia is attacked to end the battle phase. Landoys, a counterpart to Beast and Barkion for monster effects, but its cost being
Nathan Guy, thank you so much for the Prime. Appreciate the support. Thank you, thank you.
so specific that it wouldn't be staple like the other two. And Exterio, a fusion of Beast and Barkion that combined their costs.
Where's Smile?
And effects,
Smile's
able to
already
will
out.
one and banish
I'm
one
pretty
from
sure.
grave to
Smile
negate
is
any
already
number
out.
of
That's
spell
like
or
hitting
traps in a
Arsenal
turn,
2 or 3.
seeing no play here, but being considerable for fusion cheat outs later. On to the 3 archetypes that were actually relevant. Gen X Ally was a new offshoot of Gen X, aimed at attribute-focused effects to combine Gen X
What do you
with the
mean
other hidden
actually
arsenal
relevant,
archetypes,
dude? That
with
was
a
like,
couple of
what,
relevant pieces here
Birdman?
like Power Cell, boosting all monsters with its attribute by 500 attack, Birdman, able to bounce a monster you control to hand to special summon itself, gaining 500 attack if it was a wind monster, Crusher, who pops a card on field if you normal summon a monster of its attribute, and the new synchros of Tri-Arm and Tri-Force, who gain various effects based on the attributes on monsters used to summon them. While Gen X Ally...
Wait, why is this relevant? The only relevant card here is Birdman, right? And even that is like not super relevant. Always been more gimmicky. Like Gallus FTK was a thing, but like it's a 3-card FTK that usually wouldn't work.
was an interesting strategy on paper. Most of the pieces wouldn't do anything in the metagame for now. However,
J-Ross,
Gen X
thank you for
Ally
the
Birdman
13 months.
specifically would become one of the most interesting pieces of the entire set, being a special summonable tuner that also recurs a monster from field to hand, being useful for all sorts of strategies. Fabled would receive a new sub-archetype here in the form of The Fabled, a series of beasts that all have effects around being discarded or discarding.
I didn't know there was a
cards,
difference
with
between
Catsid
The
storing a face-up
Fabled.
card when discarded, Cerberell summoning itself when discarded, Ganashia also summoning itself when discarded, and Unicore, a level 4 Fabled locked synchro that negated all cards and
I
effects
thought they
used
were
by the
all
opponent
The
if you
Fabled. I didn't know some of them were not called The Fabled. I
and
didn't
your
know that.
opponent have the same number of cards in hand on that card or effect's resolution. Unicore specifically would spawn an entire new deck known as
Unicore is such a
Control,
fun
specifically
concept.
centered on maintaining
Unicore is such a fun concept because it doesn't activate. It doesn't activate, it just negates everything in resolution while you have the same amount of cards. So let's say you have 3 cards in hand, your opponent has 5 cards in hand. Your opponent activates a monster effect on the field. You chain Reckless Greed, draw 2 cards, draw up to 5. Now you have the same number. Your opponent's stuff is negated. It's super interesting. Because if you have ways to mess with your own card, like let's say your opponent has 3 cards in hand, you have 4. Your opponent activates something, you chain Crow, go down to 3, or chain Maxi or whatever, right? Like it's so funny.
the same number of cards in hand as the opponent to lock them out of the game, with the other Fabled pieces providing backup as well as an engine of sorts for any deck looking to discard in the future. Lastly was Ice
It also
Carrier,
negates counter
who once
traps,
again
yeah.
had no relevant main deck pieces, leaving the entire impact for their new synchro, this time being Trishula, a level 9 3 material synchro that
Okay,
on
this thing was a
summon,
little bit too
banished a card
busted.
from the opponent's
It's
hand, field,
It's
and
a cool card, and honestly, in 2023, this card is probably okay, you know? Like, if you put in the work to summon Trishula in 2023, it's probably alright, you know? I enjoy summoning this in Runic a lot. It's very fun. Back in the day, it was a little bit, like, it was ahead of its time. Let's say it like that. Let's just leave it at that. Trishula was a little bit ahead of 2011. That was more like a card for, like, I don't know, maybe like 2016 or 17, that where it would have been fine, maybe.
Graveyard, extremely notably not targeting.
But that shit was
Trishula
so
was,
broken,
of
man.
course, the primary draw of the set, being arguably the best generic synchro in the format, able to completely blow apart
Neru,
setups
thank you for
going
the Prime,
second and
appreciate
hand
you.
rip the opponent going first, which became more problematic for many strategies which looked to make multiple Trishula going first. This would be further accented by the next core set of
Desynchro.
the year, which would bring the core sets of 5Ds to a close while also giving synchros a swan song piece to revolutionize the mechanic one last time.
Wait, what? What revolutionizes the mechanic?
Extreme Victory. Release date, May 10th, 2011.
Oh god,
Set
tour
type,
guide.
core
Oh
set.
god,
Major
tour guide.
strategies, tech
Okay, chat,
genesis,
now that you know how much Maxi was worth at release, how much was tour guide on release? $30, $60, 25 cents, $200, $1. Okay, so Tour Guide. I don't know exactly if it was right on release that people realized how freaking broken Tour Guide was. But Tour Guide was very expensive very, very early on. I don't know exactly what the peak was. Tour Guide, I think, peaked at... I don't know how it peaked in Europe, but I think it was definitely over 100. It was definitely... I don't know if it ever reached 150. I don't know if it ever reached 150, but it definitely was over 100 in Europe. Maybe it was 200 in the US. I don't remember her being 200 in Europe ever, but it was very, very expensive. And the funny thing is, in the very beginning, it wasn't even because of Link monster, because of Xyz monsters. Like it would end up being an instant rank 3 in a lot of decks, but honestly, this is the kind of time where just being able to tutor Sangan was good enough. Sangan at this point is still limited, and the searching power that Sangan gives you is just good enough to play Tour Guide even before it makes rank 3 XYZs. Right? It's like it was actually just good to have multiple copies of Sangan access that gave you a free body with it as well. Right? You just use it to get Sangan, and then Sangan gets you hand traps, Sangan gets you combo pieces, like because we're heading into Tengu Plant era. There was a lot of course, during Tengu Plant, you already had rank 3 XYZ, so sometimes you could make a rank 3 with Tour Guide, but super, super often, you just get Sangan and have it sit there. Right? That is pre-errata Sangan. Yeah.
Psychics, 6 Samurai. Impact, the swan song of synchros. Extreme Victory,
Kefta,
being the last core set of the 5Ds era, was obviously setting its sights high, aiming to bring the first true Excel synchro strategy to the masses in the form of Tech Genis, or TG for short.
So
an archetype aimed
bad.
at cycling their pieces to build out massive synchro lines to climb all the way to their level 12 boss. Most of the main deck monsters of relevance here shared an effect that, in the end phase of the turn they're destroyed, let the owner search for a TG of a different name from deck to hand. These included Cyber Magician, a level 1 tuner that can synchro summon using a TG.
My favorite
hand,
card from this set was Full House.
A level 2 tuner that can special summon itself if you control no monsters. Warwolf, who can special summon itself if a level 3 or lower is special summoned. Rush Rhino, who gains attack when attacking. Recipro Dragonfly, a level
TG, at the time, I didn't like it, because it was like the Resident Sleeper skill drain deck. Looking back at it, compared with nowadays stun decks, it's actually alright. It's not that bad.
2 synchro that can send a synchro to grave to revive its synchro materials once per turn. Wonder Magician, a level 5 TG locked synchro tuner that pops a spell or trap on summon.
If this card is synchro summon, target one artifact scythe on your side of the field, destroy that target. Noted.
And can synchro summon on the opponent's turn. Power Gladiator, a level 5 TG lock synchro that pierces. Blade Blaster, a level 10 Excel synchro that can banish a TG from grave to banish itself until the next standby phase, and can send a card from hand to grave to negate a spell or trap that targets it. And Halberd Cannon, a level 12 3 material Excel synchro that can negate the summon of a monster once per turn and revives a TG when sent to grave. While TG was ambitious with its synchro strategy,
TG was just a pretty bad combo deck back in the day. Well, it was intended to be a combo deck. It was pretty damn bad at it. So people played it as a stun deck where it was actually good, because all of them had floating effects in the graveyard. So they were great with skill drain, and they had Horn of the Phantom Beast, which gave them 800 attack and made them draw a card every time they kill one of your things in battle. It was actually a really good like control deck at the time, / stun actually. At that point, probably a stun deck.
Completely different niche in this time period.
The freaking Horn of the Phantom Beast
Psychics
made you
would see
rage
a slight
quit,
offshoot
dude.
in a series of monsters focused on banishing each other temporarily with Esper Girl, who, when special summoned from the banished zone,
These cards were
banished
very
the top
cool.
card of your deck.
These cards were the psychic deck that actually plays like a psych, like the whole gimmick of psychic was like pay life points to do something. That deck was super cool. It was never really good. I remember Jeff Jones got like second at a YCS with it, but I remember trying it after, but it never caught on. It was never actually good. It was very fun though, and it made Nat Beast, which is not that fun, but it did that.
Face down, adding it to hand when sent to grave. Silent Psychic Wizard, who banishes a psychic from grave on normal summon, summoning it when sent to grave. And Serene Psychic Witch, who banishes a psychic from deck when destroyed, summoning it in the next standby phase. While most of these wouldn't see any play, Serene Psychic Witch would find an odd niche eventually. 6 Samurai received a couple of new pieces in Elder, who could special summon itself if you controlled no monsters, and Sheen's Dojo.
This is because what we needed was more 6 Samurai support, right?
which gains a Bushido counter anytime you summon a 6 Samurai, able to be sent to grave to summon a 6 Samurai from deck with equal or lower level. Dojo would be immediately slotted in without hesitation, but Elder specifically would spark an innovation in the deck involving the previous spell Ascentism, which we'll talk about soon. Moving into the single pieces, Unknown Synchron was a level 1 tuner that can special summon itself if your opponent controls a monster, seeing some experimentation in synchro spam strategies. Mystic Piper was a level 1 that could tribute itself to draw and reveal a
Piper
card,
is so
drawing
base,
another if
dude.
you drew a level 1.
Piper spawned a whole entire deck that wasn't super, it wasn't very popular or successful, but the Piper deck was giga fun, man. The Mystic Piper, Battle Fader, King Cabillo, kind of chaos control, monster mash kind of thing. It was like so cool, man. It was such a cool deck. You would play, basically, this card is, you tribute it, draw a card. If it's a level 1, you draw one more. King Cabillo on summon is a spirit level 1 that revives a level 1 from the graveyard. So if you have King Cabillo with a Piper in the graveyard, you can do it every turn. Every normal summon is basically draw a card / draw 2 if you draw level 1s. And there was a lot of good level 1s. You could play Effect Veiler, Swift Scarecrow, and Battle Fader to stop your opponent from killing you. Like you could even, there was relinquished versions, Treeborn Frog, there was like Cyber Valley, DD Crow, a lot of really good level 1 monsters, a lot of them also being light or dark, so you could play like Chaos Sorcerer and stuff. It was really, it was a dope deck. It was never dominant, but it was pretty cool.
Spawning a deck known as Mystic Piper alongside the previous spirit monster King Cabillo, who could revive a Mystic Piper each turn to trigger its tribute effect.
Very cool.
Karakuri received
Very
Komachi,
cool.
a level 3 tuner that gave you an additional normal summon of a Karakuri each turn, which would completely revolutionize Karakuri as a strategy, giving them more swarming potential.
Well, this
Debunk
basically made it so Karakuri was its own deck. Previously, it needed other extenders to get tuners or non-tuners onto the board. Now it could do it on its own.
a new counter trap that negates a monster that activates its effect in
Ninishi
hand or
was
grave,
crazy, yeah.
banishing it.
Debunk
seeing
is
some
also
side deck
sick.
play. Safe Zone was a continuous trap that could
I
prevent
hate
a monster
Safe
from being
Zone.
destroyed by
I
battle
hate
or
Safe
card
Zone with a
effect,
passion.
destroying the monster if it leaves the
Fuck
field,
Safe Zone.
being both a great protection trap as well as a piece of removal if it gets MST'd while face down. W Nebula Meteorite was a trap for the Worm archetype, flipping all face down
This card
monsters
was
on the
crazy.
field face up, flipping all light reptiles back face down at the end phase, drawing a card.
I almost didn't top YCS Turin 2013 because I almost lost to Worms on the bubble with Dragon Rulers, dude. I almost lost to Worms with Dragon Rulers because this card is freaking custom as hell, man.
Card for each, and summoning a level 7 or higher light reptile from deck if you did. Meteorite on its own would spawn an entire deck in the form of a control strategy with Zex and Yagan from Hidden Arsenal 3, which again, we'll cover soon. For the OCG imports, the only one of note here is Scrap.
Celery card, think for the 9
It will
months.
special summon itself from hand if you control the Scrap, popping a Scrap when you did. Also having the standard Scrap recursion effect, being a useful piece for Scraps both in swarming and in triggering their recursion. Lastly are the TCG exclusives, with 3 specifically impacting the meta at large.
You've been to Turin? That's my home city. Yeah, I've been there. There's only been one YCS ever in Turin. It's been 2013 YCS in Dragon Ruler format. I think Ravine Ruler format. It was won by Sam Pedigo from the US.
This was Gladiator Beast Esadari,
I got top 4
a
at that
contact
one.
fusion of any 2 Gladiator Beast monsters with no other effects, being an instant slot in for Gladiator Beast, giving a pseudo get out of jail free card for the deck to put pieces back into the deck for future tag outs. The second, and less short-term impactful, but extremely impactful long-term, was Tour Guide from the Underworld, a level 3 fiend that summoned another level 3 fiend from deck on normal summon.
This card is meta to this day. Literally right now, the most played meta deck in Yu-Gi-Oh! Or the most successful deck right now. There's a lot of decks right now, but you could call Unchained one of the most successful. It's either Unchained or Rescue Ace is the most successful deck right now in the TCG. And Unchained still, to this day, plays 3 copies of freaking Tour Guide.
Negating its effects and locking it from being used as synchro material. Right now, Tour Guide would only be decent thanks to summoning Sangan from deck to cycle and search with it, but was immediately bought out on release due to being obviously and intrinsically linked to the next major summoning mechanic coming in a few months with the next era of the game. The last, and easily most impactful in the short term, was Reborn Tengu, who special summons another copy of itself if removed from the field in any way, which completely revolutionized synchro summons by replacing the materials used immediately on synchro summon, being slotted into any and all decks that focused around synchro usage. This would be immediately seen at YCS Orlando just under 2 weeks later on May 21st.
I'm gonna be honest with you, I would not be surprised if at some point in modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Someone finds a way to still abuse the shit out of Reborn Tengu, man. Because technically that shit is still kind of custom, man. Like, that card is back at 3. I don't know what you could do with it, but if at any point there's a deck that produces a lot of tuners but needs non-tuners, bro, Tengu could do it, dude. Just wait until they make a deck that spams a lot of tuners, or wait until there's a deck that Link one that needs a Beast Warrior. We're in there, dude. We're in there. We're going normal summon Tengu into freaking Axis Code Talker the opponent into another dimension, dude.
Many new faces would appear in the top cut here. Gear Valley Stun was an odd one-off deck that combined a few different engines together to form a wall of massive beaters, specifically in the forms of the Malefic monsters of Stardust and Cyber End Dragon, being the Malefic summonable by banishing monsters from the extra deck instead of the main, and Gear Town to summon out Gachiltron Dragon by setting a new field spell over Gear Town, which naturally would be perfect with Necro Valley, able to stun out various strategies in the format. While the deck only saw one top here, it would grow as a popular anti-meta pick in the coming months. Doppel Synchron would combine the previous Plant Synchro with a 1-2 punch combo of Doppel Warrior and Junk Synchron, able to reliably summon Junk Warrior with 3100 or more attack, which provided the materials to extend further.
It's a good deck, but they are just missing that you could just put Reborn Tengu into this deck and it'd be insane. That's kind of what they're missing.
Into at least one copy of Trishula. Gadget Synchron Plant aim to use the Plant Synchro pieces with a 2-copy line of gadgets, Reborn Tengu, and Watchdog to access the toolbox of Synchros. Specifically with Watchdog able to flood the board with access to Bure and Burrito, who summoned another Watchdog on summon, with the level 1 tuners and level 4 monsters providing easy access to Trishula reliably. Worm would make its first top here, combining the power of W Nebula Meteorite with control of Zex and Yagan, choosing to summon King with the Nebula Summon effect.
Yeah, this deck's actually not bad. This deck's actually not bad. If this deck opens Zex plus Meteorite, you're not beating that deck ever. Like, you're actually, you lost. You go next.
Gen X Ally Birdman, which provided recursion for Zex specifically and a tuner for level 7 synchro plays. Scrap saw a little bit of retooling thanks to a new Shonen Jump promo, Mechlord Emperor Granul, who could summon itself from hand if a monster you control is destroyed by card effect, able to steal a synchro to equip to itself once per turn, able to summon an equipped card, and gains attack and defense equal to half of your life points. A powerful boss that synergized well.
I don't know if this is actually true or not, but I think that... Was this thing legal for us in Europe? I don't remember. This might have been a jump promo. I'm not sure.
With the standard scrap game plan. TG Stun was the primary deck to come out of the TG strategy, as all of their effects to cycle for more copies created an infinite conga line of monsters,
at this time,
using their archetypal trap TG1 EM1 to steal an opponent's monster and swap it with a TG, able to then run over the TG and get the search in the end phase. This was also one of the first sightings of Horn of the Phantom Beast for Sun strategies, able to latch to Fire Dog, King Tiger, Rush Rhino, or Warwolf to give an attack boost and draw power. Both Chaos Plant and Synchro Plant would see adjustments here to include Reborn Tengu, as a repeating level 4 body for Synchro summons proved to be extremely powerful, especially when combined with a card like Gen X Ally Birdman, making the normal summon of a Tengu at minimum able to access a level 7 Synchro and another level 4 body, which in particular proved useful for Black Rose Dragon, as you can make Black Rose, Chainlink 1 Tengu, Chainlink 2 Black Rose to nuke the board, and you still get your last Tengu summon. X-Saber, Gravekeeper, and 6 Samurai would stand mostly unchanged in the meta with the exception of the Trishula slotted in for Saber and Samurai. But there was a new form of 6 Samurai that appeared in the top 32 here in the Incentism build. The idea of the build is that the newly released Elder had 400 attack, just like Kagemusha, meaning that with Incentism you could, without using your normal summon, get the materials for a level 5 Synchro, which extended further thanks to both Elder and Kagemusha being Earth,
that we could now make Nat Beast.
But it could also be Naturia Beast, adding another layer to the control the deck could put up turn 1. Travis Massingale would win the event with Zombie Plant, taking similar steps to other decks in the format for easy Trishula access through the quick level 4 body zombies can flood the board with. With the stage set for Trishula's dominance of the format, the next set would mostly be yet another set of reprints, but a certain card in it would further push some of the new tools from Extreme Victory even further.
What is it? That's a Blackwing, irrelevant one.
Duelist Pack Crow. Release date May 31st, 2011. Set type, Duelist Pack. Major strategies, Blackwing. Impact,
Zephyros.
A single new combo piece from many strategies.
Zephyros!
Duelist Pack Crow stood as yet another reprint of the Blackwing core for competitive play.
Zephyros is my favorite Blackwing, I think. Zephyros, and when I say I hate Blackwings, I don't mean Zephyros and I don't mean Gale. Those are fine. Those are good. Every other Blackwing is cringe.
Effectively reprinting Gale, Bora, Blizzard, Shura, Armor Master, Armed Wing, and cards for Black Feathers again, with Black Feathers being the only new reprint among these, being unnecessary at this stage. However, Crow did bring a single new card of note, that being Zephyros the Elite, able to special summon itself from grave by bouncing a card you control back to hand and taking 400 damage once per duel. Zephyros would be immediately taken out of Blackwings and slotted into any number of decks in the format, specifically those using Reborn Tengu already, as by bouncing the Tengu with Zephyros, you trigger Tengu to summon another copy. This wouldn't be the only meta shakeup here, as 2 weeks after Crow, the next structure deck would release, and while
if you hate Blackwings, you don't deserve Zephyros and Gale. No, dude, if you like Blackwings, you don't deserve Zephyros and Gale.
Would take a minute for its pieces to become truly relevant, the strategy it brought would almost immediately be destined for meta viability.
Ooh, agents were powerful. I
Lost
hated
Sanctuary.
This deck was cringe because you had to play 3 Shine Balls. You cannot change my mind on that. Like, I hated that. I hated being forced to play Shine Balls.
Date, June 14th, 2011. Set type, structure deck.
But it's a cool deck other than that.
Agents. Impact, the revitalization of fairies. Lost Sanctuary, being the last structure deck of the 5Ds era, would go out with a bit of a bang, releasing a wave of legacy support to the DM era archetype of agents, being a series of fairy monsters named for the different planets in the solar system. With this new wave, they received Earth, a tuner that searches an agent on normal summon, or Master Hyperion if you control Sanctuary in the sky, Jupiter, who can banish an agent from grave to boost a light fairy by 800 attack that turn, able to discard a fairy to special summon a banished fairy if Sanctuary in the sky is active, Master Hyperion, the end boss for agents, able to special summon itself from hand by...
The only flop about this deck, I think, is that they never actually made it so... Like, half of this deck is focused around Sanctuary in the sky, which is super random because the good versions of the deck never played Sanctuary in the sky, right?
Banishing an agent from hand, field, or grave, able to banish a light fairy.
That's like
kind of
the weak design on
twice
this.
per turn if Sanctuary is active.
They never made it so people actually wanted to play the card.
In hand to draw 2, locking special summoning and the battle phase that turn. This wave would do a lot for bringing agents into the meta, mainly in that a dedicated fairy deck would naturally synergize well with Archlord Christia, who had latched itself to Lightsworn for the time as there were no other viable decks in the format with enough fairies to facilitate her, but with agents that changed. Reprints here included Agent Venus, Mystic Shineball, Tethys, Marshmallow, Hecatrice, Shining Angel, Soul of Purity and Light, Nova Summoner, Honest, Consecrated Light, Valhalla, Terraforming, Burial from a Different Dimension, Solidarity,
that's a lot of notable reprints, bro.
Torrential, and Solemn Judgment.
Hello.
Making this one of the best locations for so many reprints in the current metagame.
Blood just listed the entire structure deck.
And for light decks in general. YCS Providence would take place 4 days later, and with it both Agents and Zephyros would make their way into the meta rather quickly to varying levels of success alongside a few new one-off faces. Fabled would see their first top here thanks to the new The Fabled card.
This deck is cool. Yeah, this deck is cool.
Snipe Hunter and the Tricky to quickly trigger their discard effects, using a combination of their tuners and Reborn Tengu to quickly churn through cards thanks to Fabled Ragin. TG Synchro Plant would aim to break TG out of the stun archetype they had established previously, using their pieces with, of course, Tengu and plants to facilitate quick synchro summoning.
Oh, no,
Water Synchro would be a sort of precursor to a Zexal era strategy, using Genex Undyne to dump Fishborg Blaster and Treeborn Frog out of the deck to search for Genex control.
Ooh, I like what I'm seeing. Hell yeah. Oh, that's not something... Hold up, were they cooking? You don't know this? I know about this like later during Tengu Plant format. I do. I know like Norman used to play this deck a lot, for example, at German Nationals. I know this deck, but I never played it myself back then, and it looks very, very nice.
More useful for the water dump than the actual search, enabling a level 4 synchro straight away thanks to Fishborg. Herald decks once again saw a new pivot to take, specifically in the agents from Lost Sanctuary, able to now consistently have a power pushing plan outside of the control from Herald. Agent would also see tops here in their own more pure variants, using
Herald.
Venus to flood the board with Mystic Shineballs, and by extension Birdman since you could return a Shineball to hand, then just summon it right back out, easily giving access to Trishula and the 4 fairies engraved for Christia. Tyree Tinsley would take the event with Synchro Plant, mostly using the same lines we've seen before, but now with an added copy of Zephyros for added level 4 access, providing quick access to Trishula like before. Shortly after Providence, the yearly Shonen Jump subscription bonus started hitting mailboxes, which brought probably one of the most broken pieces of synchro spam support yet.
I know
TG
what this is.
Hyperlibrarian, who made the owner draw a card anytime they successfully synchro summoned while he was on field. Hyperlibrarian would be the piece that truly caused a cascade of synchro spam decks into the format, as now anytime you invest materials into a synchro summon, you get an immediate payoff in the form of a free draw, or 2 in the case of summoning Formula Synchron, which was extremely common at this point. Librarian's release alongside the next reprint set would form a cap-off point for the 5Ds era, as the new era, now only being a month away, was slowly creeping its influence into the player base, which would manifest rapidly when we entered the national season.
What is this, Gold Series?
Gold Series 4.
Yeah.
Release date, July 1st, 2011. Set type, reprint set. Major strategies, Reprints of harder to get cards. Impact, price falls, but little meta reprints. Gold Series 4 is probably
Yeah,
one
I
of the
don't
weirdest
remember Gold Series 4 being like crazy good. Like they just used something like Dark Lord Zerato as like the cover card for this Gold Series, which is like, okay, that's like 5 years late, dude.
Sets thus far, as while it brought a significant number of valuable reprints for cards that only had one expensive printing or were previously promos locked away from the EU, very few of the reprints here were actually meta-relevant for the time. Reprints of note here included Morphing Jar, Injection Fairy Lily, Gravekeeper Spy, Spirit Reaper, Chaos Sorcerer, Meltiel Sage of the Sky, Prometheus King of the Shadows.
Like most
Dark
of
Lord
these,
Zerato.
like, yeah, these, I'm pretty sure Prometheus and Dark Lord Zerato were probably expensive at the time because they didn't have reprints yet, but they weren't relevant anymore. It's like if you wanted to pick them up, it was like a little bit late, you know?
Doom Caliber Knight, Raikou,
Isn't
Celestia.
Zerato bad? Zerato only, the only thing I remember with Dark Lord Zerato is like during the early Dark Armed Dragon decks, you would like play him as a dark target for trade-in maybe. That was like the only thing I remember about it. I don't think it saw play after 2008.
Titaniel, Summoner Monk, Obelisk the Tormentor, Five-Headed Dragon, Kazaris, Soul Exchange, Toon Table of Contents, Trade-In, Royal Oppression, Deck Devastation Virus, Trap Stun, and most notably Blackluster
Chaos
Soldier
stuff,
Envoy
yeah.
at the beginning, who was banned at this point in time, but this reprint effectively served as a warning signal for what was coming on the next ban list. With that said, the national season was just around the corner, but prior to the gauntlet beginning, the new era would peek in its head for a brief preview of events to come.
Ooh, gotchi. Exceeding!
Dawn of the Exceed. Release date, July 12th, 2011. Set type, Starter Deck. Major strategies, the first Exceeds. Impact, a peek-in that affected worlds. Dawn of the Exceed would be the preview of the Zexal era, which was set to begin a month later with the new core set, bringing the first 3 of the new monster summoning mechanic of Exceed summoning, a method that has a player take...
It was literally, I believe, the first couple tournaments after Exceeds, we only had these 3 for a while. Literally only 3 Exceeds legal for a little while, which is very funny. It's a very funny concept to think of a format where Exceeds exists, but there's only exactly 3 of them. Now, of course, the next set I believe is going to be Generation Force, which is going to have like Leviathan and stuff like that. But even with that set, the pool is very, very limited. It's kind of how when Link Monsters came out, we had the same thing, right? We only had like very, very few Link Monsters in the early days of the Link mechanic, which is actually a very funny concept where like, you know, now it's like every deck has its own Link Monster and there's like a billion Link Monsters out there. Thinking of a world where everyone is playing the same Links, same Exceeds in their extra deck because there's literally only 4 different ones. It's kind of fun because it's not like you don't have to guess what your opponent is going to turn their 2 level 4s into. You just know that everyone in the room who has 2 level 4s on the board has like exactly one option, and that's Utopia. Or like exactly like after Generation Force is like 2 or 3 different options, which is fun in a way, right? It's fun in a way.
2 or more of the same leveled monster to overlay for an Exceed monster of the same rank, notably not having a level itself, placing the monsters underneath the Exceed as Exceed materials. This would specifically be a bit confusing when it comes to rulings for a period of time after, but the long and short of it is that cards becoming material is not considered leaving the field, but a monster being detached as material is not considered leaving the field either. It's a bit complicated, but the 2 biggest cards this would affect were Reborn Tengu and Sangan.
This is actually, the more you think about it, the more confusing this ruling gets. I know that in the very, very beginning, I believe for a very short period of time, I don't know how long it was, maybe it was a week, maybe it was 2 weeks, I don't know. When you detached Sangan off of an Xyz, you would get to search. It was a very short amount of time. But then they changed it because it would have made Tengu and Sangan so incredibly broken. Now, as a result, the ruling does, like, just from a logical standpoint, doesn't really make sense, because if you have a Sangan on the board, that thing, we can all agree on that Sangan is on the field. But then you Exceed summon a rank 3 Xyz, and after you do, the Sangan is no longer considered to be on the field, right? So Situation 1, Sangan and another level 3 are on the field. Situation 2, there's an Exceed on top of them. Sangan is no longer considered on the field. But what didn't happen in between those two is Sangan did not leave the field. which you would think is logically impossible because he used to be on the field and now he's not on the field anymore, but he hasn't left the field. Anyways.
Tengu would not get a summon after it was used as Exceed material, and Sangan would not get to search if detached as Exceed material, which was an updated ruling from the OCG due to a litany of issues Sangan specifically caused. As for the Exceeds themselves,
which I think we can agree that logically it makes no sense, but from a balancing standpoint, especially during the year 2011, I am glad that they did it this way. I'm glad that they did it this way, because it would have been hella broken if they didn't, but it doesn't not really make sense.
To rank 2, 3, and 4 to start us off, being Gachi Gachi Kontetsu, a rank 2 that could prevent its own destruction by detaching a material, boosting the board by 200 attack and defense for each material it has, Grenosaurus, a rank 3 that burned the opponent for 1000 by detaching a material when it destroys a monster in battle, and Utopia, a rank 4 who could detach a material to negate an attack.
How broken would it be today? I mean, you'd have to think of certain uses. But, yeah. There's probably some broken use you could find. Of, like, you know, I could probably make a broken rank 4 Xyz deck, you know, it'll catch me making a Reborn Tengu rank 4 toolbox, because then I make a rank 4 detach Reborn Tengu, trigger Reborn Tengu, summon another Reborn Tengu, make another rank 4 detach Reborn Tengu for Daigusto Emerald, shuffle my Reborn Tengus back into the deck, trigger another Reborn Tengu. You know, like, you could probably do some shit like that, you know?
But auto dies if attacked with no materials. Each of these would find a place in the meta shortly after release, with Utopia finding a slot in various decks using level 4, Gren being a target to summon using the previously released tour guide, and Kontetsu finding a home in Agent specifically, primarily thanks to Agent Venus providing its materials with the shine balls it summons, making Venus a 2000 attack beater that way. Reprints here included Giant Rat, Shining Angel, MST, Mirror Force, and Raigeki Break, being rather light, but reprints are never the
probably wouldn't change much since Links already do that.
I mean, 3 days later on July.
So what you're saying is we need more cards that work like Links, right? Is that what you're saying? You're saying Links are so good for the game that you wish we could do that with more cards?
15th, kicking off the national circuits, and though the new Exceed monsters were available, none would be played in the top cut as of yet, seeing primarily a shakeup in the form of the inclusion of Hyper Librarian into the format. For those of you scratching their heads like I was at the sight of Hyper Librarian in EU list, even though it was just a Shonen Jump promo less than a month ago, all of the WCQ events across Europe in the last 2 months distributed Hyper Librarian as one of their 3 prize cards, making it legal to play in the EU on July 5th, which most players who were not playing the prize card version, rather they played the SJ promo version from North America.
Do you know how they know that? Do you know how they know why Hyper Librarian was legal in EU? Because I told them that. Because I told them. They asked me. They were like, yo, why was Hyper Librarian legal even though it was a Jump promo? And I told them. I let them know.
Which even after shipping prices was considerably cheaper. With that said, Hyper Librarian had a massive impact on the format at large by boosting Synchro Plant higher than it had already reached, taking the event piloted by Michael Gruner for his 3rd major event victory, playing 2 Librarian to facilitate resource generation while performing the standard Synchro plays. The North American WCQ would take place the same weekend, and we'd see similar results to the EU Championships, with Synchro Plant taking the majority of the top 8. Hansel Aguero would win the day on TG Stun, streamlining the deck's
God, this is the final version, dude. This is the omega final boss of this deck's iteration. Like this was so, oh my god, dude. Oh my god, it was this deck, dude. No man, they go set skill drain or set oppression, Horn of the Phantom Beast, they're Reborn Tengu, and you are literally leaving the table, dude. This deck is so freaking oppressive, man. Whew. Also, funny story, which you probably know, but this is the only ever 2-time North American WCQ champion, because he did it again. I believe 11 years later in 2022 he won again with Sword Soul.
Position to a small monster line in addition to the inclusion of Skill Drain to further promote the stun game plan. YCS Indianapolis would follow 3 weeks later, seeing the prize card shift to Blood Mephist, who interestingly to this day has yet to see a single reprint since its prize card stint. As for the tournament itself, Synchro Plant would absolutely dominate, showing the power of Hyper Librarian in the format, but a couple of other interesting shifts occurred here too. Agent would move to include Gontetsu into deck lists moving forward, as the rank 2 was actually quite powerful in combination with Venus and her Shine Balls.
Yeah, I mean, you would just summon 2 Shine Balls and get a free freaking wall.
Gear Valley Stun would grow in its popularity, restructuring to be entirely large boss monster focused, dropping the Greater Gravekeeper package in favor of Beast King Barbaros and Skill Drain, being one of the most powerful stun strategies in the format next to TG Stun. Gadget would see an odd resurgence here thanks to the new Exceed Utopia, which could convert any 2 level 4s into a 2500
People, this is what I mean when I say people just love their decks and they will keep bringing it over and over and over again. There's no shot you thought gadgets were good now because they could make Utopia. I do not believe you. No way, dude. You're not playing a gadget deck because of Utopia, dude.
with built-in battle prevention, proving to be quite useful. Robert Boyajin would take the event with Synchro Plant, being one of the first players to utilize Tour Guide to either summon a rank 3 or to summon Sangan to get its search effect by leaving it on the field. The final event of the 5Ds era would be held just a week later, being the 2011 Yu-Gi-Oh! World Championship, at which we'd see a shocking
what was this? Agents
rise in the popularity of Junk Doppel in the format, mixing the engine of that with Tengu plants to form a powerhouse in the world's meta, though it would not take the day overall. Ogawa Takashi of Japan would be crowned the world champion this year with Agents, fully embracing Gontetsu as a power play for turn 1 in addition to Herald of the Orange Light, being easily the most powerful hand trap in the entire format, showcasing the lockout strength of Christia. This would be the final event of the 5Ds era as all eyes turn to the next core set releasing 3 days later, as with it, the Zexal era would begin in full and major shifts in the player mindset were bound to take hold from their introductions.
Worlds 2012 when? Need to see Josh Muckshot? I don't know if I'm included in that because I didn't win.
Generation Force. Release date August 16th, 2011. Set type Core Set. Major strategies Wind Up, Hero, Exceeds.
I love Levier, dude. Levier was broken, don't get me wrong, but I still love him.
Impact, playing the new era safe. Generation Force would be the official start of the Zexal era of Yu-Gi-Oh! And similarly to Duelist Genesis before it, it aimed to introduce power players into the format to kick off the new Exceed mechanic in full, but notably the initial wave it brought would be significantly weaker than Synchros before them, as Konami didn't want a repeat of the Teledad situation all over again. In the initial wave of generic Exceeds, we received number 17 Leviathan Dragon.
That is true. That is true. The first wave of new type of cards has usually, ever since Synchros, been relatively tame, right? Like the first Exceeds were all like very tame, right? Even Levier, even though it's a really good card, in the early days it wasn't that broken. Like you occasionally summon it in like Tengu Plant. It started becoming really, really good with Rabbit, but like for Lynx, Firewall Dragon was busted, but it wasn't busted on release. It took a decent amount of time until Firewall Dragon actually was able to be abused. That's why it was legal until all the way in like Danger FTK times in 2018, right? Like Firewall Dragon was they didn't realize how broken it was going to be, I think, when they made it, right? Which is funny to think that they are quote unquote careful on release with like new mechanics, you know, like they're slowly introducing Xyz, slowly introducing Link monsters, but then they're making broken as hell ones later down the line anyways. It's almost like they want to get you used to playing with Xyz a little bit, and then after 1 or 2 years they're like, all right, here's the broken shit we got cooked up, dude. Like, here you go, here's your Shockmaster. Take this Shockmaster, take it or leave it.
It can detach a material to gain 500 attack, but can't attack directly if it has no materials. Levier the Sea Dragon, a rank 3 that can detach a material to summon a banished monster once per turn. Tiras, Keeper of Genesis, a rank 5 that destroys the card on the field at the end of the battle phase if it battled, and can't be destroyed by card effects, losing these effects if it's out of materials, detaching 1 at the end of your end phase. And Adrius, Keeper of Armageddon, a TCG exclusive rank 5 that could detach a material to pop a face-up card on field once per turn. These cards, while solid for an introduction, were notably weaker than the intro wave of Synchros, primarily with the 2 most useful power pushes being locked in the rank 5 pool, which was harder to access.
I mean, Tiras and Adrius were pretty damn good cards, but it was just very hard to summon 2 level 5s. It was like the the first time I remember actually using them was like during Insector and Windup, because they both had level modulating, right? Because Windup Shark could become a level 5, and with Insector Ladybug, you could turn your Insectors into level 5s as well. That was the first time, I think.
But the Exceed pool was still a solid starting point, with all finding use in the meta. Windup would be the premier Exceed archetype pushed here, being a series of monsters that could only use their effects once.
I know. Windup's game plans have always been cringe, from hand looping to Shockmaster to whatever. I know that. I acknowledge that. I still love Windup. I'm biased. Sorry.
Field each, with Magician summoning a Windup from deck if a Windup use an effect. Juggler able to destroy a card at battles after damage calculation. Zen Meister, a rank 4 that gains 300 attack for each material it has and can attach one to flip a monster down until the end phase, either able to stun a monster the opponent has to clear it, or reset
Fuck them toys is funny.
a Windup effect. And Factory, adding a Windup from deck to hand once per turn when a Windup effect is used. While not great now,
Ben TCG,
Windup would gain
thank you for the
more and
2
more support over the coming sets to rise into their place in the meta, though it was clearly going to take some time, as the most useful piece right now was Zen Meister, being a generic rank 4 for other decks to utilize. Moving into more one-off pieces, Goblinberg would be a swarm tool for various decks.
Goblin
able
was
to special
good.
summon a level 4 or lower from hand, then swap itself
That was
into
pretty
defense
good
mode,
for
being useful, but notably would cause some effects to miss timing due to the defense swap after the summon. Wonder Wand could equip onto any spellcaster, boosting its attack by 500, but more notably able to send itself and the monster to grave to draw 2, being a decent draw tool for various spellcaster-focused decks. Surface could special summon a level 3 or lower fish, sea serpent, or...
Bro, I just realized, if Wonder Wand, if Hugin was a spellcaster...
Aqua from grave, being useful for some frog and fish OTK builds as an extension piece. Moving into the TCG exclusives, Sea Lancer was an interesting card that could once while on field equip as many banished fish, sea serpent, and aqua monsters to it as possible, gaining 1000 attack while having a monster equipped this way and able to prevent destruction by sending one equipped to grave. Sea Lancer would see experimentation alongside the frog engine thanks to
Is there a spellcaster? No, there's no spellcaster runic.
Totem banishing various aqua monsters to summon itself, giving Lancer a monster to tribute over to
Frog
summon
Lancer deck Pog? No, dude. I love most of the frog decks. The Sea Lancer deck was cringe.
Target to equip on, spawning the rogue deck of Sea Lancer frogs this way. Orient Dragon was a level 6 synchro that, on summon,
this shit revolutionized the Debris Dragon. Even though Debris Dragon was already broken, dude, this thing made it so much better.
The opponent controls, being an odd counter choice for extra decks. Lastly are the OCG imports, which would mostly be focused on importing a series of hero cards, all adaptations from the GX manga, being Aster's Vision Heroes Trinity and Adoration, generic fusions of 2 or 3 heroes with Adoration able to drop an opponent's attack by the attack of another hero you control, and Trinity doubling its attack the turn it's summoned, unable to attack directly, but able to attack 3 times on monsters in a turn, Elemental Hero Nova Master, the Fire Attribute Omni Hero, able to draw a card if it destroys a monster in battle, the Masked Heroes, being a series of fusions summonable by using the spell Mask Change on a hero of their attribute, with the only targets here being Goka, a fire target that gains 100
Surely they would never print something degenerate that you could summon with Mask Change, so this is fine.
attack for each hero in grave, and Vapor, who can't be destroyed by card effects, and a Hero Lives, which pays half your life points while you control no monsters to summon an elemental hero from deck. While Hero would get a massive wave here, none of these cards would make Hero in the meta any more playable, but it
Bro, the biggest support for Hero was Xyz in general, dude. Like, the fact that you could now use Bubbleman's body on the board made it actually a viable deck at some point down the line again. Like, Bubble Beat is actually a sick Yu-Gi-Oh deck, man.
would plant the seeds for potential in the future with new hero support focuses. The last OCG import here was Steel Swarm Roach, an Exceed for the upcoming Hidden Arsenal archetype that could attach a material to negate the inherent special summon of a level 5 or higher monster, being useful for stopping synchro.
Roach is funny because it's an Exceed monster that sucks against other Exceeds. It's kind of ironic because it's an Exceed monster. I'm pretty sure the purpose of Steel Swarm Roach is to force people to play Exceed decks. Because if you're not playing an Exceed deck and you're playing against an Exceed deck, they can summon Roach to kill your deck, right? Which is it's like basically it gives every Exceeds deck a way to beat synchros, right? Which is just a funny concept. You're just like, people business, we're bringing out this new Exceeds mechanic. So if you're still playing a synchro, if you're playing a synchro deck customer, you're kind of cringe. So we're gonna make an Exceeds that kills synchros, bro.
Spam strategies. Directly following this release would be the first wave of Collectible Tins 2011, which in addition to their easy access reprints of Leviathan and Zen Meister would be the first yearly.
No way, reprinting a cover card right after the core set? That's stupid. You have to wait 2 years to reprint until you reprint the card. It has to be $100 for 2 years, and then you reprint it when it's already not playable anymore.
Collectible tends to also bring promos, with notable reprints in here being Beast King Barbaros, Stygian Street Patrol, Pot of Duality, Arc Lord Christia, and Elemental Hero Gaia.
No, way too soon. Pot of Duality is only 1 year old, dude. You have to wait.
Specifically being a massive reprint here due to the price of the meta staple at this stage. The ban list would also be updated here on September 1st, and a massive set of changes would come with this particular list. Newly banned were Fishborg Blaster, Mindmaster, Giant Trunade, and Royal Oppression, with both Fishborg and Mindmaster being linked to OTK.
Royal Oppression literally 4 years late, 5 years late.
With one clearly being better than the other in that regard, Giant Trunade being a bit too powerful for game pushes, and Royal Oppression being a thorn in the side of the meta for some time. Newly limited were BLS, releasing from the ban section as a massive boon to the meta, Debris Dragon, Formula Synchron, Shien, Lone Fire Blossom, Hyper Librarian, Trishula, Heavy Storm, Pot of Avarice, Primal Seed, and Sheen Smoke Signal. Being a large
This was so funny. The fact that they thought it was necessary to put Primal Seed to 1. It was at 3 beforehand because both BLS and Chaos Emperor were banned. They were like, I think we can bring back we can bring back BLS from a balancing standpoint.
Trishula, Heavy Storm, Pot of Avarice, Primal Seed.
But the only condition under which we can bring back Chaos Blackluster Soldier, we have to get rid of Primal Seed because people are going to do stupid stuff with it, which is very funny to me. It's very funny that they thought the only condition under which they could bring back BLS was limiting Primal Seed.
And Sheen Smoke Signal, being a large culling wave for many of the synchro spam strategies.
No cooking allowed.
Newly semi-limited were Deloran, yet again, Necrogardna, Summoner Monk, Tragodia, Destiny Draw, Swords of Revealing Light, Call the Haunted, and Mind Crush. Lastly, unbanned here was Judgment Dragon, Spirit Reaper, Megamorph, MST, Overload Fusion, Gravity Bind, and Icarus Attack, being a large cleanup wave. This ban list was a massive kneecap to the various synchro spamming strategies of the last format.
I mean, the thing is, I technically have no issue with limiting extra deck tools to 1, but when it's usually extra deck tools you only play 1 anyways, it's kind of weird, champ. Like Librarian, the first Librarian was the most important anyways. The first Trishula was the most important anyways. Formula is the only one where limiting it actually matters a good amount. Like I would say 1 formula matters a lot, but 1 Librarian, 1 Trish, it's like not that big of a deal, honestly. Like 1 Librarian is not a big deal at all. Some decks played multiple Trishulas, but most decks didn't, honestly. Like, I think that this is like a kind of a nothing burger of a ban list outside of Formula Synchron.
Copies of Formula, Librarian, and Trishula, making
like,
them far less
it doesn't make sense, especially considering how you would think they want to weaken synchro strategies in order to make people play Xyz. But they're not really doing it right.
But BLS specifically coming to limited here would be an extremely interesting move. As with various decks already playing light pieces alongside Tour Guide, BLS was just effectively a free boss monster in the format. This would lay the groundwork for what is now known as Tengu Plant format, with YCS Ecuador being the first testing grounds of the new meta, being held just over 2 weeks later on September 17th. And though we don't know a lot about this event, we do know that BLS specifically would find its way into 3 of the top 4 decks, including the winning TG agent list by Gallo Orbea, who mixed the recursive bodies of the TG monsters with agents to both make quick synchro pushes, but also set up Christia and Hyperion follow-ups.
TG Agent, not really a deck that would really see play afterwards that much, I don't think. But
YCS Toronto would happen the same day, and it would paint a clear picture that Synchro Plant had not been slowed down at all by the new ban list, with Agent seeing a massive surge in popularity with the unban of BLS. Doppel Synchron would see a top spot here following its World Championship performance, with Junk and Doppel both providing dark names engraved for Chaos Sorcerer and BLS pushes on top of their synchro lines. Nordic would see a single top spot here, sporting the Nordic Beast line specifically.
Right, I think this might be, is this the only Nordic top ever? It might be the only Nordic top ever achieved.
Access level 7s and 10s easily on top of providing light names for BLS, which if it wasn't clear yet was the big focus of this particular event. BLS...
That is a crazy achievement, by the way. Unironically. If you're the person in the world, like, and honestly, no one else can ever take this from you ever again in modern Yu-Gi-Oh! It's not possible, I don't think. Like, you are forever the only person to ever top a YCS level event with Nordics. And I don't think anyone can take that from you, because that is simply not going to happen anymore in 2023.
Was everywhere, Karakuri would see 2 tops here thanks to Komachi providing extra swarming to the strategy, being searchable with Gen X Neutron 2 for added synergies, but also being one of the first decks in the format to utilize Fiendish Chain, which was quickly becoming more and more popular.
Oh yeah, the rise of Fiendish Chain.
As previously mentioned, agents had adapted their list to make room for more darks to enable BLS lines, specifically in Tour Guide, who enabled rank 3 lines for the strategy, with Leviair being particularly useful to recurrent agent you banish to summon Hyperion. Billy Break would take the event with Synchro Plant, similarly adding in Tour Guide to the deck to enable rank 3 lines as well as BLS access. Lastly, for this massive block of updates would be the Generation 4 Special Edition, which notably reprinted Absolute Zero for EU access, which in a way would set the stage for the following set to reprint more cards of the GX era to the masses.
Ooh, Raging Battle.
Legendary Collection 2, The Duel.
Oh, Raging Battle's already out.
Academy
It's reprints. Never mind.
Release date, October 4th, 2011. Set type, reprint set. Major strategies, the various strategies of GX characters. Impact, many reprints, many impactful. Legendary Collection 2 was the second Legendary Collection set, with the first being released the year prior, but literally just being a rerun of 6 DM era sets, it was not really worth covering at the time. This time, however, rather than just doing a rerun of GX era sets, the Duel Academy years did something revolutionary by building its own massive mega pack, in which various cards used.
Oh, is this the very first iteration of the so-called mega pack? I think so.
By various GX characters between the anime and manga, as well as a few reprints for cards not specifically used by characters, were included, being one of the largest sets ever released at the time, coming in just behind Dark Revelation 1 by 6 cards. These cards included Jaden's reprints, being Card Trooper, Neospatian Grand Mole, Elemental Hero Stratos, Ocean, Neosalius, Prisma, Necrogardna, Gallus the Star Beast, Dandelion, Miracle Fusion, E-Emergency Call, Instant Fusion, Super Poly, Hero Blast, and Thunder King Ryo. Aster's reprints, being Destiny Hero Diamond Dude, Malicious, Disc Commander, and Destiny Draw. Zane's reprints, being Cyber Dragon, Cyber Valley, Chimera Tech Overdragon, Overload Fusion, and Future Fusion. Chaz's reprints, being Dark End Dragon and Light End Dragon, no, there is absolutely no time. Bastion's reprints, being Hydrogeddon and Mizuki, and other various reprints, being Phantom of Chaos, System Down, Dimensional Fissure, Macrocosmos, Dimensional Prison, DD Survivor, Banisher of the Radiance, Grandmaster of the Six Samurai, Gateway of the Six, Double-Edged Sword Technique, DD Crow,
that's a lot of reprints, man.
Bestiari, Laquari, Haplomus, Test Tiger, Darius, Equest, Heraclinos, Proving Grounds, and War Chariot.
Hey, Mir, thank you for the 4 months. Appreciate you.
Garroth,
Thank you.
Lumina, Wolf, Arcus, and Judgment Dragon. Needless to say, this was one of the biggest reprint sets with relevant reprints ever at this particular stage, but with the only relevant change happening here being the release of Gallus the Star Beast to the Americas. However, a change was on the horizon, as the next structure deck would once again introduce a powerhouse to the format, following an unwritten rule of structure decks at this stage that any...
Let me try and guess. 2011 structure deck. What is it? I'm trying to not look at chat. We already had Machina. Is it Dark World time? It must be Dark World. It's probably Dark World.
Time of Light structure deck is released.
Yeah, you guys are saying Dark World as well. I think it's Dark World. Oh, yes. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. That deck was so cringe back then, dude. It still is, honestly. Like, Dark World has always been, in case you've ever wondered, Dark World has always been only fun for one person. It's never been fun for both. Never. It's not, it's like this today. It's been like that back in the day. Always been like that.
Structure deck. Major strategies, Dark World. Impact, expected powerhouse, massive flop. Gates of the Underworld would be a massive wave of legacy support. Once again, this time aimed at the GX.
Okay, I wouldn't call it a massive flop though. Like, it wasn't like an immediate top tier deck because of its like gambling nature, solitaire nature. But it was not a flop. It was definitely a meta deck for a while.
Of Dark Worlds.
Maybe more in 2012 though.
An actual end game boss. These included Snow, who searched a Dark World card when discarded. Cerulli,
didn't this deck win a YCS? It won, I believe, to this day, the biggest YCS ever. But I believe that is in 2012, which is YCS, I think, is it Los Angeles? Like, it's 4,000 people or something like that. That was won by Dark World. Long Beach, not Los Angeles. Long Beach, my bad. Long Beach, I believe, had 4,500 people. And it was won by Dark World. But I believe that was 2012. But I don't know why we called this a massive flop.
Field when discarded, making you discard another card, which triggers the secondary effect of Dark World monsters.
So I'm pretty sure this deck was just
playable.
playable.
A field spell that can banish a fiend from grave to discard a fiend and draw a card once per turn. and Grapha, who pops a card when discarded and can bounce a Dark World on field to hand to special summon itself from grave. This wave would bring Dark World into the public mindset in a major way, making it one of the most popular decks on release both due to its power and its affordability, as the structure reprinted almost everything you'd need for the deck outside of Tour Guide. This popularity would, in turn, completely ruin the deck's viability for two major reasons. Those being the sideboard hate for it and various forms of anti-dark cards being easy to side.
Bro, people played... What was the name of those imps? Is it Gemini Imps? Gemini Imps. People played Gemini Imps to counter Dark World, dude.
In addition to the mirror match being absolutely atrocious,
that is true.
as your reciprocal discard tools will trigger the second effect of any of your opponent's Dark World monsters, leaving the deck in an odd position in the meta at large. Reprints here included Brow, Beige, Silva, Gold, Tragodia, Sangan, Battle Fader, Dealings, Allure, Card Destruction,
there's still a really good
Terraforming,
structure
Deck
of the
Death,
reprints.
Eradicator, Mind Crush, Escape from the Dark Dimension, and Dark Bribe, which was an exceedingly generous reprint pool for the strategy. YCS Columbus would take place 4 days later, and with it, Dark World would fail to clear into the top 32. Though granted, because of our limited coverage of events from this period, we only know 18 of the top 32 decks, as Konami's coverage was a good bit lacking at the time, labeling any deck that aimed to Synchro Summon as Synchro Summon for their
What? What is this coverage, dude? Yeah, Thomas is playing a Synchro Summon deck against Desmond Boyd on the Tech Genius strategy. Then we have a Synchro Summon mirror match at table 2. And then we have Kara Curry, which is not a Synchro Summon deck. Don't get it mixed up with the Synchro Summon deck. We got Kara Curry against the Synchro Summon deck. Miracle Gemini against Synchro Summon. We have Synchro Summon against Gallus, whatever Gallus is. Master Hyperion is its own deck. Gallus is its own deck. Chaos, Glad Beast, TG Hyperion. What is this? What is this?
Deck type. For the strategies we do at least know, Monster Mash was an offshoot of TG Agents in this regard, a strategy that aimed to summon Gallus the Star Beast with its effect to bounce it back with Gen X Ally Birdman to do it again.
This deck was sick.
Different deck from the eventual Gallus FTK that was discovered, simply using Gallus as an extension piece for now, but weirdly still played spells rather than being all monsters, which kind of defeats the purpose of the Monster Mash deck itself. Billy Break would win this event too with Synchro Plan, just like he had in Toronto.
Just casually winning 2 YCSs back to back. I see you,
the month
Billy.
prior, marking himself as one of the players to follow for the upcoming formats. Following this was the second wave of the Collectible 10s 2011, bringing more reprints in the promo slots with Fossil Dyna Pachycephalo, Guardian Yados, Malefic Stardust Dragon.
He almost would have done that again in 2017. You know, back-to-back YCSs, which was only prevented by a certain individual, which we all hate, you know?
Solemn Warning.
I can't believe they stopped him from winning 2 YCSs back-to-back,
Warning
dude.
being of great value reprint, Malefic Stardust now being legal for the EU.
Who would ever
and
do
Dark
such a
Soul
thing?
getting a printing with problem-solving card text,
Fringe
which in
behavior.
turn clarified its effect as only activating once
Antagonist
in a turn,
energy.
finally putting the issue to bed. This would lead into the last core set of the year, and while massive changes were in store from it, I don't think people were quite expecting what was going to be the breakout hit from it.
No, don't show me. Oh my god, this set is so broken, man. Photon Shockwave. Oh, I love Zen mains though. I love Zen mains. Photon Shockwave is one of probably the best sets of all time also. Like we've talked about Phantom Darkness, we've talked about other sets. Photon Shockwave is insane, man. It's insane. Was it Ruxin? No, it was me. What? Anyways, Photon Shockwave has Zen mains, Wind Up Rabbit. I think also Wind Up Carrier Zen Mighty. Freaking Lagia Dolka. Rescue Rabbit. God damn, dude. It's so... Oh my...
Photon Shockwave. Release date November 15th, 2011. Man. Set type, core set. Major strategies, Photon, Evol, Wind Up.
Oh, look
Impact,
at it. It's so cute, yet I hate it so much, man.
On the format. Photon Shockwave was the final core set of 2011 and the second core set of the Zexal era, and as such, many expected a major boost to generic exceeds to truly get the ball rolling for the era. Instead, Photon Shockwave focused on a couple of key archetypes here to start up new strategies for the era instead, isolating their power plays to the archetypes themselves. The first of these was Photon, a series of monsters focused on summoning 2,000 attack monsters to quickly summon Galaxy Eye's Photon Dragon, a boss that can special summon itself from hand by tributing 2 monsters with 2,000 or more attack, able to banish itself and the opponent's monster it battles
Photon,
until
to this day, the only thing it has ever done, the only impact it has ever had on the world is it's ruining my card guesser runs every day.
Into the battle phase, then gaining attack if the monster was an exceed and the effect attached it to materials. In Archetype, they gain tools like Photon Lead, which special summons a light monster from hand, and Photon Saber Tiger, a TCG exclusive that,
Saber Tiger's good though.
Searched another copy, dropping its attack by 800 if it's the only Saber Tiger on field. Photon would do absolutely nothing from here, leaving Galaxy Eyes a bit stranded for the time being. Evol was a new archetype of reptiles, dinosaurs, and dragons, having the reptiles evolve into the dinosaurs with their effects, and the dinosaurs evolve into the dragon exceeds by overlaying them with each other. Bringing Evotile Weslow, who summons an Evilsar from deck on flip, Evilsar Serrato, who
How does bro know Saber Tiger though? Well, Saber Tiger was played back then because it was it had synergy with Horn of the Phantom Beast and Skill Drain. They played it in the TG Stun versions. Like the next iteration of TG Stun played it. I don't know if it was good or not, the deck anymore. The deck probably wasn't up to standards anymore with 2011 metagame, but they played it with like you would go first, summon it, get follow-up, and then set Skill Drain, set Horn of the Phantom Beast, and suddenly your shit is like 2800 and you have two of them.
When it destroys a monster in battle, if it was summoned by an Evotile.
Was Horn that good? It's literally just reinforcements? No, it's literally not. It's continuous. It equips to the monster, gives it 800 attack, and then every time it kills something, you draw a card. How is that reinforcements?
Effect. Evolzar Logia, a dino-locked rank 4 that can detach 2 materials to negate a spell, trap, or inherent summon, destroying it, and Evolzar Dolka, a TCG-exclusive dino-locked rank 4 that can detach 1 material to negate a monster effect, destroying it. Evol as an archetype would completely flop on release here, but
in
Logia
10 years,
Dolka
Josh is going to be talking about the Pineapple Dragon in the same way. True. Pineapple the fruit dude.
Play outside of it with another card in the set, which we'll talk about soon.
These two are the so cringe, man. Wind Up Hunter, yeah, I have no defense for Wind Up Hunter. I have no defense. I was trying to find a defense for it, but I don't have one.
Kitten, who could bounce a monster.
Kitten based though. Kitten based. Rabbit.
Who could banish a Wind Up until your next.
Even more based than Kitten. I'll say it. I won't take it back. Rabbit is the most based Wind Up card ever printed. One of the most based cards ever printed. Anyways, like to be exact. Like Wind Up Rabbit is so freaking cool, man.
By phase on a quick effect. And Zenmanes, a rank 3 that could prevent its own destruction by detaching a material, destroying a card on field in the end phase if this effect was used that turn. Wind Up was clearly headed in the right
This card, people didn't realize on release how broken Wind Up Zenmanes was, dude. Wind Up Zenmanes, due to the relatively small Xyz pool in the beginning, Wind Up Zenmanes was just by far the best rank 3 exceed overall. Like it was so goddamn strong. It wasn't something that you used only in Wind Up or anything like that. Like the tour guide going first, just making this thing is incredibly broken for the time. Like this thing is so strong.
Direction to be useful, but was still missing that
so
key
strong.
piece.
It solves
Although
everything.
Zenmanes would almost instantly become staple in extra decks thanks to Tour Guide from the Underworld summoning it easily. Moving into the one-offs, Kage to Kage could special summon itself from hand if you normal summoned to level 4, being useful as a rank 4 enabler. Wat Cobra could attack directly and, when it dealt battle damage,
I also want to say, up until this point, I believe, I don't know exactly when, but I still did not own tour guides, because tour guides still, I think at this point, is still 120, 150 bucks per card. Like it's still, the playset of tour guide is over 400, I'm pretty sure. And I didn't have them. I didn't have tour guides. The first time I was able to afford tour guides is Battle Pack reprint. Is when they got a Battle Pack reprint. I believe in, I don't know exactly when that was.
Monster, seeing play in various stun and burn decks.
I don't know if it was 2011
still, more of itself. Prior, the Ice Barrier could special summon itself if you controlled an Ice Barrier monster, able to tribute itself to summon one from grave, but you couldn't summon a level 5 or higher the turn you special summoned him by this effect.
The
being
black
played in
rare,
the previously
exactly.
mentioned
Yeah,
Wetlands Beatdown as an extension piece in Grave Revival for Do Dark. Number 20, Giga Brilliant, was a rank 3 that, by detaching a material once per turn, could boost the attack of all monsters you control by 300, being
Giga
another
Brilliant
solid rank 3
alright.
target for Tour Guide. One Day of Peace could let both players draw a card and stopped all damage to both players until the end of the opponent's next turn, being extremely powerful for stun and burn decks, both drawing you deeper and preventing losing the following turn. Dark Smog was a TCG exclusive that, by discarding a fiend, banished a monster from the opponent's grave, clearly intended to be used with Dark.
How to waste a TCG only slot very effectively. pretty much. It's just make Dark Smog. This thing was even a secret rare, I believe. Like, imagine pulling this out of your pack instead of pulling Wind-Up Zen mains.
Worlds, seeing play as a one-of in some builds for added discard
Cool
options
art, though,
on the
yeah.
opponent's turn. Lastly, and easily the most important card of the entire set, Rescue Rabbit could, by banishing itself from field, special summon 2 level 4 lower normal monsters from the deck with the same name. While it wasn't clear immediately, Rabbit was about to grow and rule the format thanks to a couple of Exceeds released here, which would be made clear with YCS Kansas City 4 days later. This event would be another powerful showing from Synchroplant, but could also be considered one of the last big showings, as creeping up right behind it was the new king of the format. Dino Rabbit was the first true Exceed strategy to see in base.
Imagine signing up to an event with 6 vanillas in your deck, dude. Imagine. It could never be me. It could never be me. To this day, there is no, like, literally, there is formats where I look back and I'm like, yeah, I wonder why I didn't play that deck. But Dino Rabbit format, they call it Dino Rabbit format. Every time I look at a Dino Rabbit deck, I'm like, oh, that's why I didn't play this shit, dude. That is so cringe, man.
Mainstream success. Focused on the use of Rescue Rabbit to summon out 2 copies of either Kabazals or Saber Swords from the
vanillas,
deck,
man.
using them
6.
to immediately overlay for either a Volzar Lagia or Dolka,
This
depending
deck is basically 3 gammas with 6 drivers.
on the needs of the time.
Not
In addition
quite
to
a
this,
good
Tour
comparison,
Guide was
but you
far
get
more
what I'm
powerful
saying.
here thanks to its ability to summon Levier the Sea Dragon, who could resummon the Rabbit to simply do it again. What made this deck in particular a massive thorn in the side
What
of
did you
players of
play?
the era was the fact
I played Wind Up throughout these years, pretty much.
that under priority, you could banish the Rabbit before the opponent gets a chance to respond, meaning the primary counter to the card, Effect Veiler, was a completely moot point as you'd never have the opportunity to Veiler the Rabbit before it went off. This issue would remain
Unironically though, looking back at the format, I do think Wind Up was just better than this deck and had less bricks. Like, Wind Up was just stronger. Everyone going back to this format and saying like, nah, Dino Rabbit is the shit. Nah, you're coping. Your deck is not better than Wind Up. No shot. Your deck's better than Wind Up.
Early 2012 when Ignition Effect priority was finally removed from the game, but until then, Rabbit going first had next to no true counters. Dark World would see some success here with 3 spots in the top 32, but almost completely fell out by the top 16, with only 1 player clearing with the deck, suffering from extremely targeted sideboard hate in other decks. Herald Agent would see an interesting inclusion in their top 32 appearance here,
the
being
Jin?
Releaser of Rituals, who, if used to make Herald a perfection, locked the opponent out of special summoning, which would be a strategy that comes up again in later formats. Courtney Waller would win the event on Chaos Control, seeing a large power boost from VLS, but notably...
outside of the tour guides, this is pretty much a 2009 ass deck, dude. Outside of Tour Guide and Maxi, this deck's like 2009.
Dimensional Alchemist in the deck to recur pieces banished by your Chaos bosses. Shortly hereafter, Kansas City was the final jump subscription bonus of the year, being Shooting Quasar Dragon, a level 12 3-material Excel Synchro who can attack up to the number of materials used that were not tuners, having an Omni Negate effect and summons Shooting Star Dragon from the extra deck when it left the field. Quasar would be one of the first big bosses ever to have a free Omni Negate built into its effect, a novelty so powerful at the time that the new Synchro strategy known as Quasar Turbo would begin to pop up, entirely focused on summoning out.
Wait, what about Lagia? Did they just say it's the first? Did they say the first synchro with an Omni Negate? But we already had, Shein, but like it's not an Omni Negate technically. But
out Quasar as fast as possible to control the game, which was also shockingly easy thanks to
Lagia wasn't an
Omni.
Okay, yeah, it doesn't negate monster effects. True.
Draw more cards as you climb, providing 2 of the 3 materials needed for Quasar themselves. There was one more set this year to round things out, and though it wouldn't bring much of anything meta-wise for now, it would set the stage for the following year to shake things up.
Oh no, the card guesser downfall happened exactly at this moment. Exactly at this. I wish this particular. Oh no, man.
Hidden Arsenal 5 Steel Swarm Invasion. Release date December 6th, 2011. Set type Deck Building Set. Major strategies: the Dual Terminal 2nd Generation Wave 1. Impact
fucking up my card guesser rounds every single day, man.
Introductions for Impact later. Hidden Arsenal 5 was the final set of 2011, and the first set of the new generation of dual terminal archetypes. But extremely notably, almost none of these archetypes were good in the slightest off of this initial wave, so we're gonna try and keep it moving semi-fast through these. Gem Knight was the new series of Earths that used their vanilla monsters to fuse into bosses, but none of these fusions would be relevant at all. Laval was a series of
They should have never made this pack. Now I'm rewatching. I'm rewatching these. I'm watching this rewind thingy. That they should have not made it. They should have not made it. They should have stopped right there. Like, we're almost at the end of 2011. They should have just said, fuck it, let's go 2012.
monsters aimed at flooding the graveyard for their effects, but all of them were lackluster.
We don't
for this
need
period
to.
of time. Vylon was a series of light fairies that aimed to cycle through equip spells and their bosses.
Speaking of shit that messes up Card Guesser, man, tell me the difference between...
of note here being Cube for later degenerate FTK strategies. Gusto was a series of wind monsters that specialed another from deck when destroyed in battle, forming a loop known
come on. Literally, if tomorrow they show me Gusto Guldo, it might as well just be Gusto Eagle. You see where I'm coming from? What the hell, dude? Why? Why?
The recruiter loop, which was experimented with for some time for stall strategies in the era, but never saw major meta success. Steel Swarm was a series of dark monsters aimed at providing tribute materials for their boss monsters, but were so slow in their control game that they saw no play outside of their generic Exceed that had previously released. Lastly, and easily the most noteworthy, Gishki were a series of water monsters focused around ritual summoning their bosses and recurring
this
their
card
ritual spells
is almost relevant now. 12 years later, it's almost become relevant.
Bringing Abyss, you search to Gishki on summon, Chain, who adds a ritual monster or spell from the top 3 of your deck to hand on normal summon, Shadow,
but
who
only
can be discarded to search for a ritual spell and could be used as the entire tribute for a water ritual summon, Aquamirror, the archetype ritual spell that could be shuffled back into deck to add a Gishki ritual from grave to hand, and the most notable ritual here being Mind August, who shuffles up to 5 cards from any grave into deck on summon. While not meta relevant yet, Gishki in almost any point in history where it's been relevant has been relevant because of loops, and Mind August would be one of those enablers in the upcoming years, which we will eventually cover. YCS Brighton would follow this release 2 weeks later on December 17th, being the last event of the year, and from it we'd see Dino Rabbit...
No one played Wind Up, dude. Wait, no, we don't have Zen Mighty yet, do we? Where was Zen Mighty released? Oh, it's Order of Chaos. We still don't have full power Wind Up. True.
Rise up quickly into its spot as
we
the
don't
top
have
deck of the
Zen
format
Mighty.
with half of the top 16. Chainburn would take a top spot here, being one of the first sightings of the deck in years at this point, notably playing One Day of Peace as a way to stall out a turn.
Where is Hope for Escape, dude? Hope for Escape was based in this deck.
And dig
Actually, no, it didn't work in the burn version because it was difference between you and your opponent, right? So it wouldn't work in Chainburn.
Much deeper for more burn tools. Ping Zhao would win the event with Dino Rabbit, notably playing Jurak Guaiba as another way to access the Evolzars, an inclusion that would become staple for the deck moving forward.
The Forbidden Lands, the Guaiba, I hate it so much, man.
2011 would come to a close, marking the true start of the Zexal era with its first real Exceed deck taking hold, and Exceeds would only grow in power from here, as 2012 would bring some of the most recognizable Exceed strategies to the forefront of player consciousness, slowly changing how the game was played for years to come.
Alright, I mean, once again, a banger video. I'm gonna link it again in chat. Please, everyone, show some love to the Law YGO, and also go harass them to publish 2012 already, because it's been 2 weeks, man. What are you doing? What the hell? Anyways, I enjoyed that. I hope you did too. It was very cool. And I'm glad we finally managed to do it. That was one of the advantages of finally having a stream where we didn't have that much to do overall. They were waiting for you to finish 2011? Maybe. True. Maybe they waited until we finished 2011. So now we have. So now they can publish it. All right. Okay, there's one other thing I quickly need to tell you guys about, a small little sponsored segment. I already told you on my Twitter yesterday that Sleeve Chief is releasing new border sleeves, and you can use Josh5 to check them out. They are also currently preparing, and I'm supposed to tell you about this, they are preparing a Black Friday week, not just one day, but an entire week, starting, I believe this Friday is when it starts. Where they're going to restock on the pod deck box. And not only restock on the pod deck box, this is one of the ones that I use as well, but they're going to restock the pod deck box, and they're also going to make a prosperity one available for the very first time, I believe. And that should be coming either this, I think it's the 24th is when it starts. And you're going to get a juicy discount, and you can use Josh5 on top of it. So it's going to be glorious. So stay tuned for the Black Friday sale. It hasn't started yet. But it's going to start on... So hold your monies until they start it, actually. It's going to be a Black Friday entire week of discounts and Josh 5% off. The site is Sleeve Chief. So !sleeves if you want to look at some of their stuff already. Yeah. All right. with that, I think we're just gonna wrap it up. I know I said if we get done early, we might do some Master Duel. However, it's already like, I don't have much time left anyways until I need to be somewhere. So I think we're gonna wrap it up a little bit early. Quick tier list, I can't do a quick tier list. The tier list is something that I don't wanna... tier list is something I want to take some more time for and not just do it very quickly. We want more? Well, it's easy. Just follow and I'll be back tomorrow. Don't worry about it. I'll just be back tomorrow. Anyways, I'm going to send you guys over to Lampy where you can have some Master Duel action. He's playing Master Duel right now, so I'll send you guys over there. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching today's stream. I hope you enjoyed it. It was a little bit more all over the place because we had a little bit of everything in there. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day. Thank you for watching. Thank you for the support, all the subs, all the follows. Appreciate every single one of you. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Say hello to Lampy from me, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye, everybody. Peace.